Welcome everyone to Comics from the Multiverse episode 395. I am Peter, and joining me as always is Matt.
Hey, what's up? Because I hold up my end of bargains, unlike someone who will remain nameless.
Well, yes, if you're wondering where Connor is, because I said that he should be here this week, he is... Well, he's AWOL, basically. He's not responding.
If you see him, please let him know that he's kind of missed.
We sent some messages. We waited a little bit to see if he'd show up, and he is not here. So at a certain point, we just had to get going. So we're starting the show.
Another vicious dog attack claims a victim.
So here we are. This is a DC Comics podcast. We get together. We talk about the DC books we read this week. Coming up on today's show, we've got Batman 143, Action Comics 1062, Batman and Robin issue 6, Green Lantern issue 8, Blue Beetle issue 6, well, Matt read that anyway, Outsiders issue 4, Matt also read Wesley Dodds' The Sandman issue 5, and we also have, finally, Batman City of Madness issue 3, so, healthy week. Got some interesting things to talk about. Not all of them going to be positive, I'll just say that up front, but more on that in a bit. So yes, welcome to the show, everyone. We're deep into February. Valentine's Day was this week, so I hope you all had a nice cry in the shower, maybe a sad and a lonely wank, whatever you do on Valentine's Day. But
God,
what?
I don't even know how to respond to that.
You could just say yes, I enjoyed it.
I mean, I had to stop and get flowers, so that's how I spent mine.
Okay.
Yeah. No sad shower or happy shower for that matter.
Yeah, I don't have anything else to add on to Valentine's Day antics. I thought I'd make a joke because
I'm just saying, me and my wife constantly argue about this, that it's a fake holiday, and it exists to keep the candy and card manufacturers going in between, Christmas and Easter, because the Easter stuff's already up. Like, they don't even offer the sales on the Valentine's Day candy like they used to, because it's being swapped out for the Easter stuff. But, yeah.
Wait, did you used to enjoy going in the 15th and?
Oh, brother. Halloween, Christmas, that's where you pick up all the extra candy, and now they don't. Now I feel like they send it back even before the date. And they get out the next holiday before you know it. But yeah, man, that's where I used to get the around Christmas, the Snicker trees. Those would go on sale, and I'd have them for like until February. It was great. Not anymore. It's very sad.
It's a shame. Happiest days of Matt's year were once November 1st, December 26th, and February 15th
Yes,
for all
sir.
the cheap chocolate. Oh, well.
And and like all the stuff that gets left over after Halloween are the candies that nobody likes anyways. That's why they're left over. So those are still there, but I'm not doing that.
Yeah. So this week, I'd been rewatching the 8 Million Elm Street movies. I think I probably said that last week or so. I watched 5 of them. Don't really want to watch number 6, so I've moved on. My next casual franchise rewatch is the Pink Panther movies. I've only watched the first 2 so far. I will say it's been a long time since I'd seen them. And while there's my favorite one, which I saw a lot when I was younger, some of them I've only seen the once before, so this was a second viewing. Original Pink Panther, it's a lot like what's a good franchise to compare it to? Mad Max might actually be a good one.
Wow. Okay. I'm curious to see where this goes.
I'm not saying it's like Mad Max, but it's like Mad Max in that the first movie is very different from what you think that franchise is, because
So Sellers isn't as zany as we expect because of where he ended up.
he's just he's a supporting character in the first one. He's not even the lead.
Huh? Clouseau's not even. I did not even know that.
I mean, he's in it, but he's not like he's definitely he's second build, and he's got much less screen time. It's all about this suave guy who's trying to steal a diamond that's called the Pink Panther from a rich princess
I knew
character.
that.
But that's the majority of the movie. The second movie, A Shot in the Dark, is a lot more like what you think of as that movie series. You think of him being this klutzy detective who keeps getting into trouble. So much so, actually, I did not remember this. it completely just ignores the continuity of the first movie, because the first movie ends in a way that A Shot in the Dark just never addresses, right? Like the first movie ends with this big deal of something happening to him that they never like fix at the start of the next one. So I think they just said, you know what, we like this character, we want to work with Peter Sellers, we want to do more of this. We're just going to kind of treat it as like a reboot almost, and just go from there. To the point where the Pink Panther's not even in the title, but then they realized that the title was good, so they kept bringing it back after that. Yeah, because
it ties it to a franchise, like you said.
Yeah, so, you know, I won't spoil it, just in case anyone doesn't know how the first Pink Panther ends. But yeah, the first one's like a 6. You know, it's kind of slow, it's not well paced, and it's definitely not got that much fun comedy in it. And Peter Sellers is the best part of it when he is on screen, but even then, he's not as wacky as he is in the follow-up movies. A Shot in the Dark, much better. Not amazing, but much better. And it really serves as like a prequel to my favorite entry, which is not the next one, it's the 4th one. Pink Panther Strikes Again is my favorite of the bunch. And the villain of that's actually heavily set up in A Shot in the Dark. Oh, wow. So it's very, very useful for that. But anyway, I thought people might be interested in some Pink Panther lore.
Wow, so the only one that the director didn't do was the second or the third one. He did the other follow-up, starting with The Return.
When you say the third one, are you talking
about Clouseau?
Yeah, okay. So that's not Peter Sellers either.
Oh, okay.
That's like a weird. That's never included in the box sets. It's never in the things.
Okay, so that's why you said 4th, because here it's listed as 5th. On the
yeah. When I say 4th, I mean Strikes Again, because when I think of that series, I think of the 5 that Peter Sellers is. Well, technically 6 if you include the one that he never finished, but then they used the footage after his death, and sort of like Frankenstein the plot out of it. Then 6 technically, but 5 full complete films that he was in.
Oh wow, Henry Mancini did the music.
Yeah, that's a great main theme.
Yeah. I did not realize that was the same guy.
Very, very catchy main theme. You find yourself humming it after you've watched the movie for quite some time.
I'm trying to figure out why Peter Sellers wasn't in that one, in the third one.
I think they just tried to make it more of a role that anyone could play, like a James Bond type thing, and then they tried it and realized, no, Peter Sellers is what made this amazing. Well, even as much as I love Steve Martin, I still haven't seen the remakes because I haven't heard great things. You know, so it just feels like it's one of those roles that was only meant for Peter Sellers. So yeah, they also tried to do a couple of sort of like soft reboots, like after those original 5 or 6, where they had like it was meant to be his son or something like that. You know, there was like a couple of weird attempts at bringing it back, but it never really.
So do you know who the other actor that played Inspector Clouseau is?
Oh, I don't remember. No,
it's Alan Arkin.
Oh, okay.
Yeah,
I do like Alan Arkin.
Yeah. Crazy times.
Yeah, I've never seen that one. I'm sure one day I'll see it for some reason or another.
Yeah,
but
you'll get around to it.
I'm just doing the Peter Sellers movies on this occasion. Of course, all of you youngsters listening are playing, what's the Pink Panther? We've never heard of this thing.
No. When I was a kid, I got very confused because it wasn't the cartoon Pink Panther that I was familiar with. You know, because there was the little shorts with the fun theme song. Yeah,
he's in the opening credits. He's just like a sort of gimmick for that. But obviously, there's no actual Pink Panther in the movies. It's the Inspector Clouseau show, as it were. So, yeah, I don't know. I thought I'd fill everyone in on Pink Panther. Yeah. I'm sure I'll watch some more for next week. But yeah, I've been playing a lot of video games. I've been playing more Yakuza Like a Dragon, right, which is good fun. But I have become addicted to a game that's technically just a demo right now for a few more days called Balatro, and it's basically like poker, but meets a deck building roguelite game where there's like modifiers and you try and improve your chances of things by, say, turning half of your clubs into hearts so you've got more hearts or stuff like that.
This sounds like something I get addicted to, like Marvel Snap, that I haven't played since October.
I have played 16 hours of a demo of this game. Yeah. Because it's that addictive, and I can only imagine how addictive it's going to be once the full thing's at my disposal.
Yeah.
But it seems like the sort of thing that eventually might just be on phones because there's no reason why it shouldn't be able to. So you might even get a chance to play it at some point, Matt, if you really want to.
For sure. Yeah, no, it sounds like those type of card games where you have to, the whole point of it, there's strategy based into it, you
Yeah,
know.
there's some luck. It's a roguelike, so there's definitely a luck in terms
Yeah.
of what you get access to in terms of like new cards and modifiers and upgrading certain types of hands and whatnot. But it's an interesting little thing, you know. I've been doing a lot of that the last few days. How's your week been, Matt?
Pretty good, pretty quiet. Still recovering from being sick. So haven't done much. I did go to AEW Collision last week, and that was fun. I lost my voice, so that's also, you know, part of the recovery. What did we watch? We watched something earlier this week, and it's not ringing a bell. But yeah. So just real quiet. Trying to get through the week. I have a 3-day weekend this week, so
Ah,
you
yeah.
know.
I'm aware of this because half the things I watch on YouTube or listen to podcast wise are all not on Monday. So I have to do with
Yeah.
not having content for a day because the
Oh
Americans have a silly
no.
holiday.
Oh no. All you have to do is find something else, Pete. You can find your podcast.
How dare you suggest I am mainly inconvenienced? How dare
Yes,
you?
sir. So I'm trying to go. Let's see. What did I watch? I'm just looking. A lot of Super Bowl stuff because there was the Super Bowl.
Oh yeah, that was since last week, wasn't it?
That was the other. Yeah. Um. Oh no, that's what we did. And I really liked it too, but I can't believe. But we got caught up on Loki on season 2, which is significantly better than season 1 because we watched the Deadpool trailer and I saw some TVA guys and I was like, I should probably catch up on it. And it was a lot more like Booster Gold than the first season. So it was right up my alley. A lot of Groundhog Day trying to go back and alter things ever so slightly. You know, very quick watch to get through those things. We watched the complete season in 2 days. So and yeah, so I might give Miss Marvel a try because the Marvels just dropped as well, and that was the first Marvel film that I hadn't seen in theaters. So
Mm.
but yeah.
Yeah. Well, I did not see Loki season 2, and I think I'm good. I think I'm good. So
Yeah, that said, I think for all the faults you had with the first season, I feel like you would have enjoyed this one a little bit more. But judging how you are with the entirety of comic book properties, not just Marvel, at the moment, I don't know how much this would, how much you would actually enjoy going through this.
well, we do actually have solicits today, so I suppose we should get into the
Yeah.
first proper segment of the show, which is, of course, the top 10, formerly known as the Comicsology top 10. Did I mean to say formally? Not formally.
Yeah, formerly it was formerly known as.
I guess. Joe, I'm realizing that formally kind of has two meanings because you could say something's formally as in it's its formal title,
Mm-hmm.
or formally as in it used to be called.
As it was former, right?
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
Yes. I second guess myself. I work myself
That's
into a
okay.
shit. It's fine.
It's one of those ones that when you start thinking about the word itself, you get caught up on it, and then it starts to lose meaning the more you think about it.
Mm-hmm. That's
So,
exactly what happened, yes.
mhm,
But yeah, so obviously they split them up, these rankings
mhm.
on Kindle's store by day. So we'll look at Tuesday first, which is DC Day. Matt, what do you think was number one?
I'm gonna guess it's Batman.
It's a boring answer, but it's the correct answer, so I can't fault it.
Mhm.
Yep, Batman 143 is number one. Number two is Action Comics. Number three is Green Lantern. Number four is Batman and Robin. Number five is Outsiders, which is kind of nice to see.
Hey.
Number six is Red Hood on the Hill. Number seven is Batman: The City of Madness. Number eight is Wesley Dodds the Sandman. Number nine is Sinister Sons issue 1, and number 10 is Blue Beetle issue 6. So, which is most of the single issues. The only thing that really misses out there, number 11 is Speed Force issue 4. Given how much I hated the first issue, though, I'm happy that's at the bottom of the list.
Oh boy.
Yeah, after that we get into some collections and your usual shtick, but not bad by any means. Is that No, it's not an omnibus. I was gonna say I saw a Batman and Robin by Tomasi and Gleason, and I was wondering if it was an omnibus, but because they don't typically do digital versions of the omnibus, but it's just a book one, so it's one of those kind of
Gotcha.
you know
Thicker. deluxe.
Yeah, 12 to 16 issue numbers. So that is Tuesday. What about Wednesday, Matt?
So when I was at the shop, I saw that there was a type of one of those tie-in type books, but I'm not seeing it on here. So maybe he had gotten that one late. So I'm gonna go out. I'm still gonna go stay in the X-Men realm, but I'm saying Wolverine 43.
That is incorrect.
That's incorrect. Is it a Marvel book?
It is a Marvel book.
Okay, so what else? What else? There's a new number 1, but I don't know if it would be that. Let's see.
All this cheating.
Yeah. There it is. This was my answer. I see it now. It had a different cover than at the shop. It's Fall of the House of X number 2.
That's correct.
Yeah.
I mean, you got there eventually, I guess. I can't fault.
It wasn't the cover must have been a variant or something, but this was not the cover that I saw that I was looking for. So
yeah, that's is that Polaris on the cover I'm seeing?
It looks like her with the looks like a Sentinel skull, maybe.
Yeah, she's got like a Magneto style helmet on, yeah. But it looks like Polaris.
I have no idea what's going on in X-Men right now.
Oh, nor do I. Nor do I. Number 2 is Transformers, issue 5. So, hey, not Marvel book that high up. That's nice to see.
I'm definitely going to pick up that trade. Daniel Warren Johnson, killing it.
Number 3 is Wolverine. Number 4 is Scarlet Witch and Quicksilver, issue 1. Number 5 is Amazing Spider-Man. Number 6 is Vengeance of the Moon Knight. Number 7 is Superior Spider-Man. Number 8 is Star Wars Darth Vader. Number 9 is Miles Morales Spider-Man. And number 10 is Thunderbolt. So it's still very Marvel heavy.
Yeah.
That's 9 out of 10 were Marvel books in the top 10. But did get a non-Marvel book pretty high up. So cool enough to see. It's interesting looking down the list and seeing that a Something Is Killing the Children collection is actually outselling a lot of the single issues that came out this week.
Is that number 7?
Volume 7? Let me click on it and find it. Yeah, volume 7 is the one.
Yeah.
Yeah. Issues 31 to 35. Which means they've had 5 issues for every single trade, because it divides neatly by 7.
Yep.
So, very good. There you go. But we'll move straight on, because we have the solicits to talk about, and they do take up a bit of time. So this is the May 2024 solicitations. We'll run through them as we always do, maybe point out anything new, probably gush over the odd cover, and get into it. I haven't really looked at these yet, so this is a complete journey of discovery for myself. First up, we have The Boy Wonder, issue 1. This is both written and drawn by Giuseppe, who I can't say I recognize that name.
Me neither.
Yeah. Here's the description on the solicits. The young prince, Damian Wayne, was raised to be the heir to the fearsome League of Assassins, to follow in the footsteps of his deadly mother, Talia, and the demon's head himself, and his grandfather, Ra's al Ghul. But everything changed when his father, the Batman, reclaimed him and brought him back to Gotham City as Robin. This is just the history of Damian Wayne so far. Yeah. As Robin, young Damian suddenly discovered he was merely one of the number of princes preceded by the role of his brothers, Nightwing, Red Hood, and Red Robin. And Damian doesn't care to be merely anything. But when his father is forced to leave the city on urgent business, and a rash of abductions is accompanied by whispers of a demon stalking Gotham's dark alleys, Damian will find himself battling alongside his adoptive brothers, and in the process learning what the mantle of Robin really means. Interesting.
Yeah.
Any further thoughts?
No, I was looking up who Giuseppe is, so, and seeing what other, but I'm looking. The art style looks very, very unique. But I'm seeing worked on a book called Monkey Meat. Worked on some Ninja Turtles, but it's a very cartoony style in that it's very reminiscent of, like, remember the Batman Brave and the Bold cartoon? The very kind of thick line, square jaw.
Yeah, vaguely.
That's what it reminds me of. But yeah, a lot of Ninja Turtles. So this sounds fun. At first I was like, do I need another Damian kind of origin book? But this sounds like, early Damian in Gotham, fish out of water, trailing a demon.
I wouldn't say it sounds like an origin story, even though they describe a lot of the origin in the Solicits. It sounds more like this is just the background to what the story is, which is the first time Batman's away and he's like dealing stuff with his fellow Robins. The last little sentence after that main paragraph does mention it's an accessible and heart-trending fairy tale. Yeah. So it might give us a sense of the tone that it might have. This is a 5-issue miniseries. I genuinely have no idea how I'm going to feel about any of this because I don't know the creator that well. So only one way we're going to find out. So
we gotta try it out.
Yeah. But yeah, that's The Boy Wonder starting in May. Next up, we got Outsiders issue 7, which cool. Is it just me or does that cover look like it's been censored for now because there's a dead character, so they've blacked out who the character is?
Yeah, and it seems like the characters is the one that's been in the book that is now missing. Because if you look at all of these characters, they're the ones that have showed up in this first 4 issues.
Yes.
So I better not be who I think it is, or I'm gonna be real mad.
I mean, it doesn't look like their figure, but having said that, they could just be bulking it out to throw us off the scent.
Yeah.
So we'll see. But
I do like seeing the big gigantic sea monster that we met in issue 2 being there in the background. So, and then this new character that we were introduced to also being there. One of my coworkers, I was talking to him, and he's a little bit older than us. And I was telling him about this book, and he's like, "Oh, you got to go back and read Planetary." So I'm gonna have to track that down now. I think the collections are still in print, because it seems like there's a lot of ties to Planetary and Wildstorm in this Outsiders book.
Yeah, Planetary and Authority as well. I think this, because even in the issue that came out today, which we'll talk about, well, not today, but we're going to talk about it today, bolds the word authority at one point to sort of like, hey, we've got ties to this. It's kind of interesting reading it with absolutely no knowledge really of either of those things and just take it on its own terms. But
no, it definitely led me when I read it the other night. It definitely before bed led me on a wiki hole of that time and era to get familiar enough with the characters, and it gave me a new appreciation for what Lanzing and Kelly are doing. So to see that where it's building up to with this cover, again, they better not do what I think they're going to do because I'm going to be mad.
Next up, we got Batman Superman World's Finest, issue 27. Wade and Mora, the implosion of global proportions. So this was teased, obviously, in the annual, which wasn't a great little story on its own, but I'm definitely curious to see what they do with all this imp stuff once it starts in issue 25. So, cool.
Teeny tiny Bane is so funny to me, and I don't know why. Because his proportions are all off. It's very funny.
Next up, we got The Flash, issue 9. Continuing the Spurrier's run, although it's Ramon Perez who's on the art on this issue. Right,
instead of Deodato.
So we'll see if that's a guest thing or maybe a new continuing artist, but we'll see.
So definitely Pilgrim, that Pilgrim character that we met on the cover. The cover looks great as well.
Yeah.
By Perez. So that's what the art's going to look like on the inside. We're in for a treat.
We have Batman Brave and the Bold, issue 13, with stories by Tim Seeley, Mark Russell, and Delilah S. Dawson. So that's still going strong. We got Batman 147, still Chip Zdarsky. Jorge Jimenez is back, which is good to see. So
this has been like the longest. Like I'm seeing words on this solicit, and it feels like this has been a 14-year run. Like,
oh, his allies aren't available. He's still fighting Zero and R. Yeah, I know. Well, it's because they took this break to do the Joker thing, didn't they?
Yeah.
So we'll be back to that in no time, I guess. Next up, we got Detective Comics 1085 with an absolutely stonking cover. It must be said. But yeah, this is Batman returning after the current arc of him sort of finding himself in the desert. So very cool. Well, not desert. Was it? It's kind of the desert. I don't know. Well,
yeah, he had to cross that desert. That's the same story that Talia told Damian. So yeah.
Yeah, I was just trying to remember if it was a desert or if he ended up on an island or something by the end. I can't remember. But then we got Batman and Robin issue 9, continuing that run. Not much to say. We have Nightwing 114, which is notable and it's the start of the new arc. You got Taylor Redondo's back on the art for this arc, which is super exciting. Taylor was hyping this up on Twitter, saying it was kind of what the run's been building to. And judging for the fact that it's called Falling Grace and sort of glimpsing at the Solicit, it does seem like this is going to be... I'm not going to say the second last arc of the entire run. Maybe he's got more ideas for after, but it certainly feels like the downfall before the comeback and whatever the final sort of part of the Heartless story is going to be. Just judging from the name and the way Taylor's hyping it up. So, exciting.
There's a fun cover that someone did. I think it was Sampier, the variant, that is an update of the first Nightwing issue that Taylor did. But so it's got the mountains and stuff on instead of Bloodhaven. So it looked very nice. I saw that on Twitter.
Oh, that's cool. Yeah. We got Poison Ivy 22. This is part 1 of 3 of the second year climax. That's a very... Okay.
I felt like I felt like we were winding down with the origin story, but it looks like we're going, which I'm not going to complain.
Do you think it ends after this 3-issue arc, or is this them just sort of...
Maybe. I don't know. They say the climax of year 2, so who knows? It's very open-ended. Yeah,
it very well just could be leading to the start of year 3. There's no reason to think it can't be, but it's just one of those books where I kind of expect it to end at any point. Obviously, it's selling a lot of variants, so maybe it never will, but...
Yeah, as long as the quality stays where it's been, I'm fine.
Yeah. Then we got Harley Quinn issue 40. Obviously, we don't have much to say, so we'll just move on. Catwoman 65, still Tini Howard. This is the final act of 9 Lives begins here, which I assume means it's the final arc and like a saga of arcs that Tini Howard's been doing.
Maybe reading by the... I feel like I need to read this book now because it seems very, like old pulp novel. It's about says Catwoman is dead meat with a certifiable cutthroat and cannibalistic cabal of criminals converging on Catwoman. The feline femme fatale finds herself searching the ends of the earth for an ally in her struggle. Just all the alliteration there. It feels like an old 50s.
You're getting suckered in, Matt.
Yep, I'm not going to do it though. I have too many other books to read.
We got Birds of Prey issue 9. Kelly Thompson and notably various artists on this one. So, yeah. I was still super pumped because of like where the next plot's going after that last issue. But exciting to see
that Romero cover with the Kirby crackles. Around Barda. This is poster worthy.
Sure. So that's cool. We got Red Hood the Hill issue 4, which is issue 4 of 6. This is specifying here. Actually, Joe, for a second there, I thought that was Kick-Ass next to him in the cover.
Yeah.
Because of the green and yellow stripe.
Seems like he's got himself his own Robin, which out of anybody that doesn't need a Robin, it's the Robin that got beat to death by a crowbar. We got the Penguin issue 10. I'm very impressed. I guess they're counting Birds of Prey as a Bat family book, which I guess it technically is. It's impressive to me how big this Bat section still is because we're still going with Bat books. But yeah, Penguin issue 10, obviously, we're pumped. It's been a great book. Nice cover. We have Batman Dark Age issue 3. This is the Mark Russell book that's not started yet. This is issue 3 of 6. Interestingly, these are 48-page issues that are $6, but there's 6 of them. So it's kind of this in-between of the Prestige Black Label and just a regular miniseries, I guess. Yeah.
So, curious. Some Superman books. We got Action Comics 1065. We're into the Williamson issues here. This is the final of the 3 issues that Williamson's doing, which goes alongside Superman 14, which obviously it's tying into. So, very cool. Or not, because I'm not that excited for it, but
no.
I appreciate the effort, but I'm not super pumped by having just Williamson take over Action for 3 months. We got Power Girl issue 9.
Yep, fun cover. Just I think that's Paquette.
We got Suicide Squad Dream Team issue 3. This is the Nicole Maines written book, which I forgot existed. Which, I mean, this happens for every miniseries that gets solicited and then it's not started coming out yet. I always forget it for issue 2 and 3 in the solicits because it's not sunk in yet.
I always want to go, what's this? Oh, yeah.
We got Sinister Sons issue 4. And we got Kneel Before Zod issue 5. We got Wonder Woman issue 9, and those covers by Saint-Pierre are killing it. They're still killing it. This one's Wonder Woman's head, all sort of like turning into stars and fading away into the yellow background. Very, very pretty. Very good stuff. We got Green Lantern issue 11, which has got Zermanico and Kevin Maguire on art. So, cool. I like Maguire, so
I'm pretty sure Maguire's doing the Guy Gardner story in the backup.
That makes a lot of sense. But I like Maguire quite a bit. We also have Green Lantern War Journal issue 9, which is cool. Seems like John Stewart's mother's in danger, which is a shame because she's a sweet old lady who must be protected at all costs. But,
all costs, please.
Yes. We have Titans issue 11. It's Lucas Meyer on the art for that. That's cool. Don't get me wrong. I love Nicola Scott, but Meyer was quite a find, I think, for us in the Titans event. So I'm totally cool with him doing some of that.
Yeah. I shared the Somni variant cover of this, and it's got Somni drawing all the Titans, and they all look great. And I just want to know, when is Mark Waid going to get his good friend John Interiors?
Oh, I don't know.
Because I needs it.
Well, we know he's working on a big project. Maybe that's it. Maybe that's the one that'll have Samney in it. We have Shazam issue 11 with Josie Campbell and Lou Pacino.
What a team!
It's still a hell of a team, yeah. We got Blue Beetle issue 9. We have Green Arrow issue 12. Which, are you still reading Green Arrow? You've been struggling through it, haven't you?
It has ups and downs. The onomatopoeia stuff was fine until the reveal of the onomatopoeia stuff, which was like, it's okay. He's really good at suckering me in. Like, Williamson has that ability for me, so... but I'll keep going until he gets, like, bad.
Yeah, okay. We got Suicide Squad Kill Arkham Asylum issue 5 of 5, so not much to say about that. Batman Dylan Dog issue 3 of 3. Can't say I have much to say about it because I don't know who Dylan Dog is. I've said that before, but I'll say it again. John Constantine Hellblazer Dead in America issue 5. This is Cy Spurrier and Aaron Campbell. This is issue 5 of 9.
That is a fantastic cover of Constantine on like a red London double-decker going over the Route 66 signage.
It is actually a very good cover. I'm not a Constantine person, but it's inspired in its artistic choices.
Yes.
We shall say. We have Batman Gargoyle of Gotham / Noir Edition issue 3.
That cover is unsettling, and I wish it would stop looking at me.
Given the way that's phrased in the title, I assume that means that both are coming out in the same day.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It says on sale $5.28, so yeah.
Yeah. Well, it blows me when I say that because usually Noir editions come later, so this is just them jumping the gun and saying, "Nah, we'll do it right away. It's fine." But it's been an interesting book so far. I could be intrigued. Although that's quite a wait for issue 3 though, because issue 2.
It is, and this is why. But so I'm going to remind myself, I've read issue 1 and 2. I'm not going to fall into this again.
You're the one who fought me on it.
I know. I'm telling myself I'm not falling for it again.
I just told you the facts. That's all I ever did.
Just the facts, ma'am.
The Batman First Night issue 3. This is the Dan Jurgens and Mike Perkins book, which I completely forgot existed, but that cover is gorgeous again.
Yes.
I think they've all been like this. They've all been this kind of like silhouette with like the art inside the silhouette of Batman. But this is issue 3 of 3. Super cool. The fact that we've not even had the first one of these yet, and issue 3 solicited, is a good sign. It means that they're going to come out in a, unless they get very delayed from each other, they're coming out in a timely fashion. So I appreciate that. We got Batman Scooby-Doo Mysteries issue 5, Looney Tunes 278, Primer issue 3. We got
That's
Batman.
a fun cover.
Yeah, very colorful. Yeah. We have Batman and Robin and Howard issue 3.
I love that title.
And then we're on to some facsimile editions. We got Crisis on Infinite Earths issue 1 and issue 2. Maybe they're going to do 3 and 4 the following month.
Maybe, yeah.
You never know with these things. Then we got Military Comics issue 1 facsimile edition.
You know, I'm not big on these facsimile editions. However, being that this is a Will Eisner issue and it stars the Blackhawks, I might have to give that a read.
We got Our Army at War 81 facsimile edition, which is a Sergeant Rock book by the looks of it. Mad Magazine 38. And then we're on to the collections and graphic novels. We got The Adventures of Young Diana, softcover. We have Wonder Woman Volume 1 Outlaw. This is the softcover, first Tom King volume, which is issues 1 to 6, and that's short story from 800, which makes sense. We have, the title's missing for this one, but it's The Flash Volume 1 Strange Attractor, softcover, Starter Side Spurrier's run. Similar thing here, issues 1 to 6, story from 800, and Titans Beast World 2 or Central City 1. Which, to be fair, there's enough stuff in there with the kids' ongoing stories that I get why you're including that.
Yeah.
Yeah, I get that.
It seems like padding. However, it was a very upfront story, so it's not going to feel... You're not going to feel lost jumping from the Flash to Beast World.
I think see if they'd done like issues 1 to 4 plus that, I would say it is padding.
Yeah.
So it's like, it's the same page count as a 6-issue trade. I'd be frustrated, but because it's an addition to 6 issues, I'm like, okay, I'm fine with it. Whatever.
Yeah,
that's completion's sake. Penguin Volume 1 softcover, issues 0 to 7 of the Penguin. We had an issue 0. I don't remember that.
I think it was the backup stuff.
Oh, I see. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, they reprinted it as an issue 0. Okay, that's why I don't remember it.
Yep.
Okay.
Because we didn't read it. We read it in the was it Detective? It had to have been.
It was our Detective or Batman. Yeah, it was one of the two. Yeah, no, quite right. I was like, I don't remember reading an issue 0, but yeah, fair enough. So that's actually quite meaty then. 8 issues worth. Would you believe it? Supergirl, Woman of Tomorrow, Deluxe Edition hardcover. Obviously, because there's a movie getting made, they want this to be in print in a nice high quality format. Makes a lot of sense. And given that they've actually cast the role now, it feels like it might actually get made, which is more than can be said for a lot of DC movies that have been announced in the past. Yeah,
right. But this is also a glorious new Evilly cover. So it also says that they're going to have brand new introduction by Tom King, a brand new cover by Evilly, the never before published alternate script for issue 6. So I'm trying to remember which one issue 6 was. If that was the Comet issue.
I can't remember what issue.
I can't remember, so I'm very curious. I don't go in and buy, full price collections anymore, but I might have to for this one.
We got Harley Quinn, Black, White, and Redder, soft cover. We got Absolute Miracle or Mr. Miracle by Tom King and Mitch Gerrards for it's an Absolute edition, so it's a big tall hardcover, even bigger than the deluxes.
Oh my god, Gerrard's art's gonna look fantastic in that.
Yeah, it does seem perfect for an Absolute. I tend to, I think, prefer deluxes as a size. I think it's the perfect size of a physical book, but I can't really blame someone for wanting an absurdly big hardcover of some of these things. Yeah. Speaking of which, you get Absolute Batman Death of the Family.
I'm trying to forget this era.
That noise was not... To be fair, I actually... This was before I fell off of Snyder. I read all of it, but... I still liked it at this point.
I appreciate what it was trying, but it just felt like the lack of editorial where they had Joker's face cut off, and then that wasn't even really factoring in to Capullo and Snyder until later. Because I talked to Capullo about that at a con, and he's like, yeah, Scott just went with it because of stuff that had happened in the other book. I think it was Tech.
It was, because this Absolute Edition collects Detective issue 1, so that's explained for the rest. So that's funny to me that if you buy this to read this, I wouldn't say classic story, because I don't think it's actually that well regarded compared to other things, but the first issue is not actually by the creative team that the rest of the book is, which is funny to me. But hey.
That said, the Court of Owls stuff I much preferred in the lead up to this. So when we jumped to this, it was a bit frustrating. But yeah.
I think I preferred this a little bit to Court of Owls at the time. When I reread Court of Owls a couple of years ago, I remembered thinking that the signs of the things that I don't like about Snyder's Batman were already there.
Yeah.
I just didn't recognize them at the time because he hadn't like, gone into the deep end yet. So I don't know how much I would enjoy Death of the Family if I read it now. Probably nowhere near as much as I did at the time.
Right.
That'd be my guess.
I just remember there's a really creepy moment with Joker hiding under Commissioner Gordon's bed. And I was like, oh yeah, Snyder came from horror. This makes sense.
Yeah, next up was Batman and Robin Adventures Omnibus. This is Ty Templeton, Paul Dini, and Hilary J. Bader who wrote this series. This is basically obviously based on the animated show. It's a 25-issue run with an annual, a mini-series, and a one-shot. So seems like a complete collection of that stuff. I never read any of it, so I can't comment on it. But cool. Then we got a Superman by Kurt Busiek, book 1. 700 pages hardcover. That's pretty neat. Which is, what's this? This is Superman 650 to 658. So this is after Superman.
It's right after Infinite Crisis.
Yeah, I was just saying though, this is after Adventures of Superman went back to being called Superman, and Superman Volume 2 ceased to exist. Okay.
But it also has Action Comics, which is up and away. So that was they were alternating. It was all one story. Action Comics Superman, and then Superman the Man of Steel annual. But it also has his Secret Identity, which is a very, very good Elseworlds tale.
Oh yeah, it's very good. Yeah.
Which if you're listening to us and you haven't, you should just track that down, find it in print, and you could read it on its own. It's one of my favorite Superman stories.
Yeah, that's interesting that that's in there because it makes it feel less like a collection of a run and more like a collection of just everything he's done on Superman.
Yep.
So I'm not even sure what a book 2 would include. I'd have to go back and check what else he did and how long his run went. But
yeah. I think was it Busiek? It was either Busiek or someone did the New 52 Superman. So maybe they would include that type of stuff too.
No, it wasn't Busiek.
It wasn't Busiek. Okay.
No, that was
Is that Perez?
Yeah, it was George Perez who did the first arc, maybe 2 arcs, and then eventually Lobdell came in. I want to say.
I try to forget that.
Around issue 13, I think Lobdell came in. It was kind of weird. Absolute Justice new edition. So this has had an Absolute before. This is nothing but Alex Ross art though, so it looks gorgeous in Absolute. I think I had the old Absolute actually. Once upon a time. JSA The Golden Age 2024 edition, so new edition of this, big soft cover. We got the Flash Year 1 2024 edition because people are itching to read Joshua Williamson's The Flash Year 1 arc as a standalone thing. Oh, Matt's so disgusted that he's getting up and leaving. This is unprecedented. He's so upset. I actually think he was just shouting at the wife or something. I don't know. Anyway, yes. So next up, we got Human Target Volume 2 softcover. Second half of that. And that wraps up the Solicits. That's everything.
We made it.
Yeah. So I don't know why you got up, but I was joking that it's because you were so disgusted that they were reprinting the Flash Year 1.
You're not half wrong, but no, my cat wanted out, and she was shaking the door. She put her paw underneath. I was trying to open it, and I was like, okay, I can't. You know.
I'm well aware of the tactics that are taken by the felines. So yeah, that's Solicits. Interesting. I will say, like, a lot of good books right now that I'm enjoying, and they all seem to be continuing in this Solicits. I will say it did stick out as I was going through these, just how much of the Solicits do fall under the Bat family of books. Like, it's literally half the Solicits, maybe more than half, which, you know, is probably worth critiquing. And it's not that I want to cut any of those, to be honest. It's more that I would like to add some of the other characters to get more books.
Yeah, but I do like how the Superman books have expanded a bit. Like, I know they've you know, they have Power Girl in there now. We have Action and Superman. I would like to see more.
I mean, even a Supergirl book's an obvious one. I would like
a Supergirl book, or even more Black Label Superman books.
Oh, sure.
You know, so I like that. But we have 2 Green Lantern books right now. But yeah, nice.
I mean, technically there's 2 Flash books, but we don't really want to talk about the second one.
Yeah, So,
Well, I suppose Steve you could Jay Garrick, but that's a mini, so that's not going to be around much longer.
So, so there are stuff, and I get it. Batman sells, and we don't read the majority of it. We read most of it, but there's certain things.
You realize that majority and most mean the same thing, don't you, Matt?
Yes, I know, but I was trying to correct myself on the fly because we read Batman out of obligation at this point.
Well, yeah, the main book, but Detective, Nightwing, Birds of Prey, like I'm reading Batman and Robin. Well, I think we did cover most of them.
Mm-hmm.
Not Red Hood.
Like we're not reading Red Hood the Hill this week, right? I mean, like, we have some standards.
That's one. Yes, unlike some people who should be here, but decided not to be.
Mm-hmm.
Possibly.
He still hasn't answered because I've been checking. So
yeah. Anyway, we'll get on to the comics because we got interesting bunch to talk about. Starting with yeah, David was not happy with my over-the-top introduction to Batman last week.
Oh yeah?
No. I believe the phrase "you bastard" was uttered, and he cut out a good bit of my bullshit. So
that's so funny.
So I'll be nicer. We're starting with Batman 143, legacy number 908. This is Chip Zdarsky writing with Giuseppe Camuncoli and Andrea Sorrentino on the art. And hey, that Sorrentino art, every time I get to one of those pages, I'll make, damn, look, this is good stuff.
And the Camuncoli art was not bad. I just wish I cared about what was going on in the story.
Okay, like I was trying to start with a positive, but you were determined to pivot us into negativity as quickly as possible. So fine. You know what, Matt? You're getting the negativity. I hate this issue. I hate what this book does by the end of this issue. I hate the entire conceit of Joker being trained to be the Joker by someone who also trained Batman because he wants to help create the opposite. And yes, I realize that by the end of the issue, the trainer dude does question, maybe the Joker like saw me coming and was pretending to need help, but was actually just trying to learn things about Batman. I accept that he put that in there. I still don't care. I hate the idea of Joker getting training like Batman did to become the Joker, and the idea that you're just further tying it to so that he's a mirror image of Batman. Part of what makes the Joker so special is he is a consequence of Batman becoming Batman. And he is just this random person. He is just this force of chaos that could not have been predicted. And using it to just shoehorn in a character that you made for your miniseries and that you want to shove down our throats again. Like, Matt, when I saw the editor's note saying, check out Batman the Night for more, my eyes could have not rolled further back into my head.
We weren't a big fan of that issue either because it was all about Bruce learning how to not feel pain. And we're like, all right, this is a little bit much as far as the training go, right? Like, so to bring this character back, we already weren't big on. And then, like you said, Joker is a consequence of Batman's actions. And it's what, in Nolan's Batman Begins at the end, where Gordon and Batman are talking, and Gordon brings up escalation, and then he flips over the Joker card, right? That is the perfect use of why Joker exists, right? Is that once Batman made himself known, the bad guys were going to start getting just as flashy, Yeah,
and obviously the person that is the Joker was obviously alive before that because he's an adult already. Like he obviously existed in some form, but this idea of like him, or even just the idea of like doing a year one, an origin story where it's about him going from being just turned white to actually developing who the Joker is just not something I am interested in. I don't think it's engaging. I think it takes away from anything I like about the character. So I hate it. Now, just conceptually, I hate this arc. Yes. I hate this issue.
Now, if I am going to be positive about one thing in this, is the when the one guy, which I know he has a name, but I don't remember the brain guy. Either. When he brings up that he feels like there's 3 different Jokers, right, in this one. And I always like that because part of the Joker and part of the chaos is Bruce never knows which version of the Joker he's getting in different stories, right? So they talk about there's the one who's like an imp with a devilish behind him, right? And that's kind of the classic Joker, the laughing Joker. But then there's the one that's like a lot more dark and sullen, and I kind of tied that to the Killing Joke version. And then there's the one that's just the pure demon, right? And I don't know if we've really seen that version of Joker, so just the idea that, just like in Batman, there's Bruce, there's Batman, and then there's like Bruce at the cave with Alfred and the boys, right? I like that there's different kind of iteration depending on what's going on with Joker.
Okay, saying that he's got different aspects to his personality that come out, and maybe using that to justify the whole three Jokers thing, rather than there's physically three different people that are the Joker. I'm not necessarily against that. I understand what you're saying. However, the idea that he develops this because this trainer dude developed, but basically this trainer dude has his own Zur-En-Arr. What does he call him? The Den
I don't
or
remember,
something.
but I was like, can we not do this?
Where is it, hon? The CarMZ. That's what the CarMZ. That's what he calls it. So his voice changes, his speech bubbles turn red, and it's the idea that this trainer has a different, darker personality that he lets out when he needs it, right? And I'm like, so what you're saying is that this guy literally taught Batman the idea of creating a Zur-En-Arr. The idea that Joker's multiple personalities are all just his Zur-En-Arrs. I hate that, because again, you're just like this Zur-En-Arr thing's overplayed at this point. Anyway, like I'm sick of it now. And
I was gonna tie that into Zdarsky doing like, hey, there's a thing that's good in here, and then he pushes it too far, right? Like there's a seed in there that I can get behind, but then you just remind me, I forgot about the Zur-En-Arr thing, and it pissed me off because the whole idea of Batman creating Zur-En-Arr, I like, again, in principle, but we've gotten so much of it, it's kind of lost its meaning. I like the idea of Zur-En-Arr being this backup personality for Bruce when things get tough, like in Batman R.I.P. It's his kind of what's the word I'm looking for? Like reboot, kind of like when you reboot your computer back to its main thing. That's kind of what Zur-En-Arr is for Bruce. And now I just feel like, oh no, it's just militant Batman. And Zur-En-Arr has now lost that kind of backup personality for me.
The problem is it's just using it again. Like, it felt special the first time. It felt like a big deal. Yeah. But now it's just a trope in Batman to just keep going back to that well. And it just feels like it's lost any mystique or any special feeling that it ever had. And now you're saying that this other guy taught him to do it, so he's got his own Zur-En-Arr with a different name. And that Joker's multiple variations are all just kind of different takes on his own Zur-En-Arr. Like, all of that, like, just frustrates me, and you're now stretching a concept that I think you've made me not like with Batman, and you're making it this thing that's not even just unique to him, that it's this, like, skill that other people have learned and taught to each other.
Again, I hated this character when we read him in the night, and this made me like him even less than I already did. It's very because Batman stuff, and I just like, again, him teaching them not to feel pain. I just like, that's a bit too far. Because for me, with Joker, is he is so wrapped up in what he's doing, right? He's a force of nature at a certain point, and that's why he can keep coming at Batman.
I also, I admittedly, again, I'm acknowledging at the end of the book, the trainer admits that he's not sure if Joker ever actually wanted his training or just wanted to use him to learn about Batman. But as I was reading it, it was also annoying me, this idea that he kept saying, "Oh, you're afraid of one thing, the Batman. I will take that fear out of you." And all I could think was like, no, to me, Joker was never scared of Batman. If he's excited by Batman, he loves messing with Batman.
I bring it up all the time, and that's why I love Heath Ledger's. Like, we're going back to Nolan, is when he goes, "Kill you, what would I do without you?" It is a yin and a yang, is that Joker can't exist without Batman.
I also, and on that same note, actually, one of the things that I don't like about the future stuff, this whole everyone's got a Joker zombie virus, right? Is he keeps saying Bruce, right? He keeps calling him Bruce. Now, I don't really care if he knows that he's Bruce Wayne, whatever. But I kind of feel like Joker, and it's kind of similar to Gordon in a lot of ways, actually, is I don't think Joker cares who the person is, because who he really is Batman, and that's what Joker cares about. So this idea that he keeps saying Bruce and Brucey over and over again as if he's trying to get under his skin, I don't know, it just doesn't feel...
For me, it works in a horror aspect, right? Because it's it's almost like this inevitable, like it feels like Batman the End, where you know what I mean, where finally they're on even playing ground, and he knows who he is, but it doesn't really matter. You know, she's trying to shake Bruce.
Don't get me wrong, this is not the only story that's guilty of this. But personally, if I'm writing a Joker story where he learns who Bruce Wayne is, if he learns that Batman is Bruce Wayne, my instinct would be to say that Joker would just kind of like push that aside and say, I don't care, you're Batman. Like that's how I think he would react to that, because that's who he cares about. It's the Bat
that I want, you know. That's what goes with him.
And we always talk about how that's who he really is. He really is Batman. Yeah, his name is Bruce Wayne, but you know, it's this, when he's holding the lasso of truth in that Wonder Woman annual, and they say, "Who are you?" He answers Batman, because that's who he really is.
Right. And it's also it's stuff. I think it maybe wasn't Joker, but I remember when Dick took over the mantle, one of the villains were like, "That's not the same guy. He moves differently." You know, and I feel like if that's Joker, he almost loses interest when it's not Bruce, because he can tell the difference.
Joker definitely knew, but it wasn't. Yeah. Funny actually, I just said there that it's kind of like Gordon. Remembering back to that run, both Gordon and Joker recognized that it wasn't the same person. Gordon obviously talks to him a lot up front, so he can tell it's a different person, and that makes, you know, reasonable amount of sense. But there's a great moment in that run where Joker turns to Dick in the Bat outfit and says, you know, you only get through this if you're as good as he was. Like, and it's this idea that he knew instantly that this wasn't the same person under the mask. And he's kind of treating him with like a different attitude because it's not him. He probably just assumes that, hey, it's probably the first Robin that's in there, because it makes the most sense that someone like that graduated to be the Batman. So,
like he got a promotion.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's almost like that whole concept of folie à deux, which is the shared madness, is that Bruce and Joker are going to be shared because of Bruce's hand in having him created, right, by knocking him in that vat of acid. But I don't think Bruce necessarily cares who Joker was either, right? He's just dealing with who Joker is now, you know, because I think that even if Bruce found out about all the Sheer One stuff, I don't think it changes how he deals with Joker. He's not going to try to relate to him on a human level, because that person that was Joker, you know, before is gone, you know. So it's a madness shared by two, and I feel like Zdarsky is pushing this more into a personal level that I just don't feel like it needs.
Yeah. So yeah, there's a bunch of stuff here. Gordon gets suspended because he punches a cop who's corrupt and intentionally gets another cop who's like on the line for the crimes. It basically makes him try and escape so that he's got a justifiable reason to kill him. And Gordon sees through it. He knows that this was staged just so that this guy would be killed so he couldn't talk. Gordon punches the other corrupt cop and gets suspended for it. You know, they're trying to deal with the whole Red Hood gang thing. In the future, Batman's confronting Joker. Joker's leaving him all these clues about the Red Hood gang. I will say, I did think the art and the pages of Catwoman in the future, you get grey-haired Selina, like Batman and her encounter each other. And because the virus spreads through laughter, blocking out noise actually stops it from happening. So Batman's got like fancy earplugs, and Selina's got she's figured it out as well, and she's basically just taped like cotton wool over her ears to stop the noise. So there's a good couple of pages with them, like the art of them kissing, and she's in like her old school outfit with the grey hair. It looks really good.
She's very reminiscent of Michelle Pfeiffer though too, like in her face. I definitely feel like Sorrentino was going for that vibe. So I appreciate that.
I can see it. And then that also reveals that she's locked up the rest of the Bat family, who are all infected. So we see Barbara Gordon with her GCPD outfit on. We see Dick, well, looks like Cassandra, Tim, and Damien in his like Batman looking attire.
Yeah, he's got the trench coat.
Yeah.
With the large collar.
But they're all Jokerized because they've all been infected. So, but at the tail end of this here, Catwoman, it turns out, has been infected and releases all of the Bat family into the world. So that's kind of your big cliffhanger for the future stuff. The present day stuff, or the past stuff, I should say, because it's year one. Joker, you know, kills the trainer, basically acts out. This is where he questions if the Joker ever even needed to like get his help, or if he just wanted information. and it just kind of ends with Joker finally killing him and suiting up. The final narration of the trainer says that either way it doesn't matter to him because like your counterpoint exists and he's perfect. That's the final line, is the idea that to him the Joker's perfect. So
yeah,
you know, I don't like this idea that someone's even like, even if they're kind of stumbling into it, the idea that someone wants to orchestrate Batman versus the Joker when he's just becoming the Joker, and it's their first ever encounter is because someone wants to see it happen, to see how it plays out. I hate.
Yeah.
Like, I don't need anything. I don't need anything to be added to this. Like, the Joker and Batman's first encounter is just because the Joker comes onto the scene to do what he's doing, and throughout the course of dealing with Batman, like, obviously that affection for, you know, fighting off Batman and like becoming enamored with him grows naturally from there. It doesn't need any connections beforehand. It doesn't need to be, you know, tied thematically in their backstories. It doesn't need any of that. And it's so frustrating when they try and force this shit in. I hate this issue. I hate this arc, right?
So you just said someone was trying to form a Joker and putting him in Batman to see what happened. And all I heard was the end of the 2018 Halloween, where it's like he created an apex predator and he released him to see what would happen. And I was like, oh. And that just hit me. I didn't even think of that till right now. And it's never good. You can't pull that story off. Like, you just can't. Like, you know.
Mean, I think you can do it maybe with an original character, perhaps.
Yeah.
And if you really focus on the like their relationship as like a mentor and psychopath kind of thing. But but you know what, Batman and Joker's like origins are pretty set in stone at this point, or at least specific versions of them are. You know, we don't need all this extra stuff. Like, he's adding all these extra details into how the Joker became the Joker we all know, and I'm like, I don't need any more. Like, we just did, you know, the Tom King, Mitch Gerrard story of the Joker's first, like,
his first appearance in Gotham.
Appearance in Gotham against Batman. And it was a perfect horror story that treated him with the right sense of mystery, the right sense of chaos. And then this is the opposite, where it's like, hey, we're going to do all these fancy connections. We're going to explain how he got these scars.
You know what, though? Yeah. You saying that, and I want to recede that you can't tell that story, because I would not mind seeing Art the Clown as the apex predator being released to see how he goes, you know? Like, I feel like that, what's his name? It's the director, Damien...
Leon,
yeah. I feel like he might be able to do it. Maybe that's where we're going with Terrifier 3, you know? I feel like but again, that's a new character. That's not a character that we are already really, you know... It's set in stone, their kind of their origin. So, yeah, this was, oh man, that's the first thing I read this week. It almost made me want to quit.
It's just not Joker. Like, no one created and manipulated the Joker into being the Joker. No. That's just not who he is, right?
Except for his own failings as a person, which lead him to that of acid, right?
It's the same as saying someone's behind the destruction of Krypton. Like, you've taken away a big part of what that actually meant before.
Yeah, Rogolzar.
So it's just one of these.
Exactly.
Like, I don't know what it is about comic writers and like feeling the need to go back and redefine parts of origins like this.
You know who I blame? And he's one of my favorite writers, and he could pull off this a lot, but it was Jeff Johns. Jeff Johns going back into histories and retconning certain things. Granted, he wasn't as, I wouldn't say anything that he did in Rebirth with Flash and with Green Lantern wasn't egregious as this, right? Maybe making Zoom responsible for Barry's mom's death, you know, but that's a New 52 thing. It is up there with this, but nothing's ever this bad. But I would put that on him because Williamson's kind of a student of Johns, and he's guilty of this a lot, you know. So, but yeah, I'll put that blame on Johns as much as it pains me.
Yeah, he was generally better at it than this, though. To be fair, but it's something I could just do without. Just like have the stories evolve going forward. We're always obsessed with going back and revealing something that happened in the past that we didn't know about until this point. And I'm not saying you can't do small moments, but like doing these big grand stories that redefine things, like
Yeah. I always like the idea with Joker too, that his origin is choose your own adventure. I like that there's different versions of it out there, and he tells a different one, different times, you know. So any type that seems like it's definitive, it's automatically going to lose me, because I don't care who the Joker was before. I care about the Joker when he shows up as is, with the white face, with the green hair, as the Clown Prince of Crime.
Yeah, it can be something that you can theorize over. It can be something that you maybe have some cool ideas about, but never anything that should feel like it's set in stone, I don't think. And not that this is really defining who he was before he fell into the vat of chemicals, but all of this stuff that he's like building up, like this is his year of training, like Bruce going in, he's like, you know, years going around, like training how to fight. The idea that he's even doing like a week of training with this guy to become the Joker is infuriating to me. I hate it. All right, let's stop talking about this issue. What are you giving it, Matt?
If it wasn't for the art, this would be a lot lower, but I'm going to give this a 4. I was going to go 0.5, but talking about it made me like it less.
Yeah. Yeah, I'll agree with the 4. Yeah, there's good art in it, but I hate conceptually so much of what this book is. So
yeah, I also want to put out to Camuncoli's Joker towards the end does the black beady eyes that they got to with the Joker in I think it was season 4 of the animated series. So I appreciate that. It's a different kind of Joker. So it's a shame that this art's kind of being wasted on this bunk story.
Yeah. Okay. Action Comics 1062, Jason Aaron writing with John Timms on art. We're having a positive week, Matt, because we're going to be positive again about this issue, aren't we?
I waited all week to read this. And then I went, you fool. Look, I love Jason Aaron. He is one of my favorite comic writers. His Star Run, one of my favorite. I never want to see him writing Bizarro again. Because my main issue with this isn't anything in the story. I mean, it is part of the story. But if all of these characters are turning into Bizarro, shouldn't they be speaking as Bizarro speaks?
Well, here's the weird thing, is that I felt like some panels they were.
And some they weren't, right? There was no consistency. So when Superman is thinking as Bizarro #1, and the voice that he's hearing is speaking like Bizarro, it sticks out on the pages when like the Bizarro Lois is yelling at him and saying he's a danger. In Bizarro, though, being a danger is not being a danger, right? Well, so they should not be hating. They should be talking about how much they love Superman, right? Not how much they hate him.
I think some of these you could argue they are saying the opposite, depending on the panel. But there's definitely some where it feels like definitively they are saying the wrong emotion if they're supposed to be speaking in the opposite. And and Bizarro speak is annoying to read at the best of times. When it's inconsistent, like I feel like it was in this issue, it became even more annoying. And I found this very, very unenjoyable to read. It was, and not to mention, again, you know, I complained about this recently, and this ties into what's going on. Part of that Batman story as well is that, you know, everyone in the city's turned into ex-villain kind of thing. I mean, there's a whole thing early in the issue where it's like everyone's doing the opposite of what they're supposed to be doing. So the firefighters are actually just spraying fire onto houses, which, okay, I get the joke. Okay, it works.
Yeah, and I like that because that's very Bizarro, right? That's very silly, very zany. The idea that Aaron's taking Bizarro, making him this dark figure who wants to cause pain, yes, I think you can do that. I just don't think it's executed well here. And it does give Superman something to do, right? It's tiring him out, and he's doing all this other stuff.
Well, just to clarify here, he actually does get taken over for a little bit at the start of the issue, and then effectively fights it off to try and save everyone. And as the issue goes on, Metropolis is quarantined, so it's just people in Metropolis, and all the heroes are staying outside. He's talking to Batman, he's talking to others. He's like, no one can come in because people might get infected with it, and there's nothing we can do. And Batman points out that Superman's even sort of slowly turning, that he's like fighting it off, but it's not something he can do forever. By the end of the issue, though, there's a time skip, and it seems like the entire world has turned into Bizarros, because it seems like the quarantine's fallen apart, and he's flying around expecting to just see Bizarros everywhere. And this is just like a broader complaint about comic books in general, I guess. But how many times has the entire planet in the DC universe like been turned into something, and people just get over it? Remember how they were all turned into like fish monsters in like that Aquaman plot back at early Rebirth, Throne of Atlantis? Everyone get turned into fish monsters. like how many? Like,
they were just turned into starfish beasts in Beast World.
That's true. Like, this happens too often. Okay, too often. It's just too much.
Yeah. That said, I do like that you get a flashback of Bizarro coming to Earth and everybody like essentially bullying him. You know, talking about how stupid he is and how dumb of a concept. So I do like that, because I have a soft spot for Bizarro when he's used properly. And so for that being his inciting incident on wanting to do something bad, that the people of Earth were so mean to him that he wanted them to feel like him. I like that thread, and that's the Jason Aaron stuff that I like. Again, it's just the execution to get there. It's a lot.
I just didn't find it enjoyable to read for the most part. Like, I didn't like listening or reading all the Bizarro speak. Dealing with a lot of that stuff. As much as the joke that everyone's doing the opposite of what they're supposed to, I appreciated. You know, it was kind of a one note thing. Like, after a couple pages, like, I get it. Like, you know, everyone's doing the opposite. There's a whole extended sequence where Superman's about to snap, and then it looks like he heat visions a bunch of people and like causes chaos, and then obviously he sort of snaps out of it. It's actually very reminiscent of a scene in The Boys where Homelander imagines just heat visioning an entire crowd of people because he's angry.
Yes.
But because that's The Boys, for a second you're like, is he actually doing it, or is this a dream sequence? Because this is The Boys. He might just be murdering people.
And my question on that was, well, how is he going to talk himself out of this one? Because it's Homelander. He'll find a way. You know?
Because he wants to be loved, and he thinks that he won't be loved anymore. So it's all an ego thing. It's all about being a narcissist. Of course, the real danger is when he realizes that some people will support him even if he does do things like that. I
gotta get back on The Boys.
Yeah, The Boys is very good. Fantastic political commentary.
Yes. But yeah, back to Superman and stuff though. But yeah, him doing this having a good. I thought that was effective storytelling, because I was like, no, there's out of anyone that's gonna make Superman kill, it's not gonna be Bizarro, you know. But I did get worried for a hot second, you know.
Here's the thing. I read this just after Batman, so the ending of this, which I don't think I would have ever liked the ending to this anyway.
Yeah.
But having read it right after I read Batman, which is just actively doing a Joker story that I don't like. So Superman flies out the city, he mentions the quarantines fell, and it's implied that the entire world, and he specifically flies to Gotham, right? That's where he goes. And he's like, there's one person who might be able to like help me. And I'm like, oh, who's this going to be? This is interesting. Like, who's he going to go see? He goes to Gotham. And he's like, oh, given the state of the world, there's only one man alive who's probably right for this job. And of course, it's the Joker. And I get that the idea here is that because everyone's flipped to the opposite, the Joker has flipped to being like the most sensible, smartest person in the world or something. Like, I get the logic of that, kind of, but part of me did groan because I just kind of felt like, oh, that we're doing Joker stuff.
I was hoping we were going to be getting Bat-Zaro, which is the Bizarro version of Batman. You know,
but why would he be helpful though if he's Bizarro?
I don't know, but I didn't want to see the Joker because I began my week with Joker and I ended my week with Joker. You know,
conceptually, I don't hate it. Right, I understand what the idea is here is that because everyone's flipped to the opposite, the Joker's suddenly become the most helpful person that you could possibly find. But at the same time, I just read a really bad Joker story, and I'm not really enjoying this story all that much. So this kind of felt a little bit like, oh, really? This is what we're doing. Plus, you know, when I think of Joker in Superman stories, the first thing that my mind goes to is Emperor Joker, and I hated that story. So there's a lot of baggage. There's a lot of baggage for Joker being the reveal at the end of this issue.
I will say I do like the design of Bizarro Joker. You know, it's not too over the top. He looks kind of normal. So I appreciate that. But yeah, no, I wish I liked this more. John Tim's art's pretty good throughout, though. I like the breakdowns. The breakdowns are pretty good. I mean, again, that scene where he visions and we think that he's turned. That's all handled really well. The tiredness on Superman's face, it comes through. So it's all there. I wish I enjoyed this more just because of the creative team. I'm a fan of theirs. And it's just not. And then we get Williamson after this, and then it just really makes me miss the Warworld stuff. We were cooking at that point. So
yeah,
here we are.
Yeah, no, I do think the book's a little repetitious because it feels like it's going over the same ground a lot.
Mm-hmm.
It's got that extra page count because it's got the pages that the backup would have, effectively, and I don't think it needed to be that long. I'm also wondering what our friend on Twitter, Talking Superman, thinks of this because he does not like Batman. So the idea of a Batman character showing up at the end is quite funny to me.
I saw him before I saw his reaction to this, and it was basically what you said of it's very repetitious. And why are we doing this? And he expects more from Aaron,
Yeah, I think my biggest complaint, though, I mean, it is repetitious, is just that we're doing, that everyone in Metropolis turns into Bizarro. But it just multiplied when it's like, oh no, the entire world's done it now. The entire world's turned into, it's like a virus that spread all over the world. I'm like, we just did a good version of this in Beast World, right?
Yep. I
like Beast World a lot. But we do this so often in comics that it loses all meaning, right?
It's when they're bringing characters back from the dead. Death means nothing anymore.
Yes. Everyone turning into something means nothing. The people in the DC Universe's version of Earth have been through more as a civilization than any civilization that's ever lived. Okay?
Yeah.
They've been through so many things and just went back to life like it's normal. It's absurd.
Yeah.
And that's just part of comics, I guess. But I just feel like I wish more writers would just understand that we don't have to actually make everything be the entire world or the entire city even are affected by something. It can just be, you can make a small scope story that has really big stakes. It doesn't always have to be the entire world.
Right. It could have just been Metropolis, and it won't leave because Bizarro has this weird, he only sees the world as Metropolis, right?
Yeah.
And I can deal with Metropolis falling to Bizarro. I mean, that's a Superman story, right? That's just part of the equation. But yeah, the whole world's a bit much. And just, I did like, though, that they tried to get Fate, but Fate had fallen to the Bizarro and was just causing all sorts of chaos because a Bizarro version of Dr. Fate would be about chaos, not order. So, so I did like that. And Zatanna was having issues because don't forget that the origin of this spell came from that planet of sorcerers, so of course Zatanna's having a hard time breaking through all of this stuff. So there's plot points in here I'm enjoying. I just wish I enjoyed the rest of it. And that's the difference between Batman and this is I can see the intent where it's supposed to be going. I'm just not enjoying the ride,
Yeah.
Versus I'm not enjoying the ride or whatever over on the other book.
I mean, I'm not really enjoying the destination in this either that much, to be honest, but I don't hate this as much as the current Batman arc. The current Batman arc I despise. This I'm just completely I
feel this ends with Superman hugging Bizarro and telling him it's okay because of how sad and upset that it made him. And it's going to be a learning lesson for Bizarro because at the end of the day, Bizarro's not all bad. He intends to do good.
But how many times have we had that ending to a Bizarro story?
True, but how many times have we had Aaron do it? I feel like the emotion's going to be there because I feel like Bizarro's going to be sorry once he comes out of this stupor.
No, Jason Aaron having not done it before. Your argument there is completely invalidated by the fact that these two issues have not been good. It won't matter that it's Jason Aaron writing it because he's already proven that he's not making a compelling case for it.
But I'm working myself up that when it doesn't happen, I'm going to be real mad. So,
I can't get on board with that thinking at all.
And that's fine, because I dug myself a hole and I was trying to climb back out of it.
I think this is weak sauce. I think it's a weak concept. I think it's... Because at least while he's doing wild things with Batman and Batman Off-World, it feels pretty new for Batman to be in that situation. Whereas everything he's doing here with Bizarro and Superman, I kind of feel like, this is just kind of some old shit. He's just reheating some old ideas, you know?
Yeah.
So, hey. Plus, at the end of this, it says, Bizarro Joker, most sane man in the face of new, and then it says Earth backwards. It's Hitre. Hitre. Yeah, whatever you would say it.
Yeah.
That annoyed me too, because you know what? Bizarro speak is annoying. I like my patience for it. Like, from the day I started reading comic books, and the first time I read a Bizarro story, until now, you can track a line in a graph that's just going down like this. My patience just waning over the years of like, I hate this shit. Stop it.
So I just want to tell people, if you want a good Bizarro story that is very much comedy based, the DCU, which is YOU, it wasn't quite an imprint, but it was like a story initiative to tell these new different stories. It's where we got the Starfire book out of that I love so much. There was a Bizarro 6-issue miniseries that's essentially Bizarro and Jimmy Olsen going across the country and getting into misadventures. And it's not all Bizarro speak, and it's very much, you know, fourth wall breaking, tongue-in-cheek type stuff. And it's by Heath Corson and Gustavo Duarte. So if Bizarro seems like your type of thing and you want a story that you might not have been read that is quite different, that isn't like every single Bizarro story, that one you guys should definitely check out.
I love the idea that there's someone out there who is a big Bizarro fan and has read every Bizarro thing, loves Bizarro speak, and can't get enough of it and thinks it's the best thing in comics. I am not here to belittle you, kind person, whoever you are. I just think it's fascinating that you exist. He
is your Bizarro. He or she is your Bizarro.
Yes. It's just and I don't hate Bizarro as a concept. No. Like I've never disliked Bizarro in general. I just but anyway, I think it's another really middling issue overall because I just can't quite get on board with everything that it's doing. Art is solid, like you said. There's lots of good images in here. It's very consistent throughout. All right, what are you giving Action Comics?
I'm at 6.5.
Yeah, I'm going to go with a 5.5 for me. So, yeah. I definitely don't hate it like I do the Batman stuff right now, but I'm not liking it either. It's in that middling kind of territory.
Yep.
All right, Batman and Robin, issue 6, legacy number 72. Joshua Williamson writing with Nikola Čižmešija on the art.
We're getting better. We're getting better.
Give it my all right? So it's just me reading this. So it's so funny because I would not describe this book as one that I'm particularly looking forward to. It's an easy read. I enjoy parts of it. It's definitely, it's Williamson, so it's got its ups and its downs. I find it more tolerable than some of his other stuff. But the bar after Batman in Action was so relatively low that surely this is a step up, right? Surely?
I'm hoping you say yes.
Well, you had Play Your Cards Right in the US, right? A game show?
I don't think so, unless we called it something else.
Is that what it was called? I think it was called that. Play Card Right. Basically, like, you know, they get like a playing card out, right? And it would be, you'd have to make bets on if it's going to be higher or lower. And then
I think there was a game in the 80s called Card Sharks that was like that.
Okay.
Yeah.
I'm pretty sure it's called Play Your Cards Right in the UK.
Okay.
Hosted by Bruce Forsyth, who also did the Generation game and what was the other one? Oh God, the one with like the Price is Right. That's you've had Price and Right. Price is Right.
You guys have Price is Right over there and stop Bob Barker?
No, it was a UK version. I don't know if it started with us and went to you or vice versa because I know some other stuff that's like Deal or No Deal, Who Wants to Be a Millionaire. They were UK shows first, and then America, went and did their own version.
Weakest Link and all that type of stuff.
Weakest Link's another one. Although you kept the same presenter for that.
For a while, and then they changed.
So. Yeah, but you got Ann Robinson to start with.
She was mean. Like Alex Trebek was never mean on Jeopardy. She did not care. I kind of like that.
Well, that was a gimmick. That was.
Oh, yes, I know, but we were so used to here in America a very compassionate like. When you miss something on Jeopardy, Alex Trebek goes, "Oh no, sorry." She's just like wrong, drop. Like you're in her supervillain lair, you know.
So anyway, what I was getting at though is higher or lower than Action Comics do you think my rating is going to be?
I think it's going to be higher than Action Comics, but just because who's on art? The art here might be better than Tim's, but the writing is definitely, you're going to like what's going on in the story more. But then I just peeked and saw that's about Shush. So maybe not. I don't know.
Not really, actually. I mean,
okay.
Damien accuses a teacher of being Shush.
Okay.
But there's not a lot of Shush stuff in this. I mean, remember the last issue ended with the kid in his class turned out to be the son of Victor Zsasz.
Yes.
Right? So the first half of the issue deals with that. Turns out he's not actually Victor Zsasz's son. He just thinks he is.
Okay.
Right? Because Zsasz is getting prison transferred, and this kid skips school. He shows up in what I can only describe as like a ninja hoodie, but it's got the tally marks all over it. So it's like he's not actually got them on his body, but he's got a hoodie that has them on it.
That's a good look, though. I appreciate that look.
And he comes in, he helps Zsasz, he gives him his knife. Batman and Robin were suspicious and following him, so they jump in and they have a bit of a fight. There's some blades flying to people. Damien pulls the mask off the other kid, and Zsasz grabs the kid, holds a knife to his throat, and this kid's like, yes, I can be your hostage, anything for you. And like, the whole thing's going on. And then eventually when Damien's got Zsasz down and he's got his knife to his throat, and Damien's being all like, oh, maybe it's time to finally end you, Zsasz, because he's Damien, right? He speaks a big game. This kid cries out, no, leave my father alone. And then Zsasz looks over and he's like, huh? And then starts laughing hysterically. And he's like, I'm not your father. And you definitely wouldn't be my son. You're a blubbering little pissant. Basically just mocks him, tells him he's a whiny little hissy because he's crying. And then Batman knocks him out. So it turns out that Zsasz killed this kid's parents a number of years ago. And the kid, to try and deal with the memory, convinced himself that Zsasz was his real father, and that he was trying to save him from his like evil parents that had taken him in. And this was like,
that's dark.
Yeah. So, but yeah, he's just really disturbed and convinced himself that Zsasz is his father, which he isn't. So, also Zsasz repeatedly says throughout this whole affair that he has no problem killing kids. He likes doing it. It's just to add to the stakes.
I love how debaucherous Zsasz is, though. He's one of those villains. Like, I don't want a whole arc of Zsasz, but when he shows up like this in small doses,
just a little taste every now and then. Yeah. So basically, though, Damien's convinced that the kid was a good fighter, though, so he must have been trained. Therefore, this woman who he thinks was his trainer back in the day must be the teacher. I remembered it being his. Maybe I was just theorizing that it was his like science teacher and not the principal, but he accuses the principal. I think I predicted that it's going to turn out to be the teacher that's nice to him, not the principal who's kind of mean, because swerve, but they've not revealed that yet. That's just my guess. But the principal's like, I don't know what you're talking about, young Mr. Wayne, but I am just the soccer coach, and we have lost our goalie because he's went to a mental institute because he thinks he's Victor Zsasz's son.
Oh God! And he was the goalie. Goalies are I don't know if it's the same in soccer, but they always say that the goalie in hockey is the most unhinged, because to want a frozen piece of rubber shot at you multiple times a game, you have to not be right in the head. I don't know if it's the same with soccer though.
I have no idea. I think they just like the extra power because they can touch the ball with their hands. So it's like,
Well, and me being the chubby kid, always wanted to play because you don't have to run as much. You can just be in goal. So.
Yes. So. Yeah, some of the kids pick on Damien and call him Art Boy. Bruce is standing there while he's making all these accusations, so he hears some of this. So later that night, Bruce comes to Damien's room and asks him what this Art Boy thing was about. Like, why were they picking on you and calling you that? And Damien shows him his comic book sketches that he's made. Obviously they saw him drawing this in a previous issue, and that's why they were making fun of him. And he's basically made a story called Damien Vane and the Murder of Crows, and it's a villain with he's called the Crow Prince or something. He's got like a crown and there's crows, and he's basically written a comic book, and there's narration boxes of like Batman and Damien talking about what he's done, and he's explaining his ideas, and Bruce gets all proud and says, "Oh, you're a great artist, son. This is great." Blah blah blah. Right. And he basically says, hey, you don't have to go to school. I realized I was kind of forcing you to do this because it felt like the right thing to do, but I never went to high school, and maybe I'm trying to force you to not be you. But Damien's like, actually, no. And he doesn't really get a finished answer because an alarm goes off because there's been an alert, something to do with Man-Bat, because that was like something that was set up at the start of the arc. Man-Bat's doing stuff. He's got like a cult of followers who are all chanting and saying, raise the bat, blah, 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 blah. At the end of the issue, is out of nowhere, just as they're about to jump in and deal with this cult, someone else takes them all out, and it's Flatline, who jumps up to Damien and says, hey, stranger, you don't call, you don't write, can we talk? And then the final panel is just a panel of Batman with the biggest shining grin in his face, just saying, friend of yours, son? So I think he's proud because he thinks his son's got a girlfriend, which it kind of does.
He does.
Yeah.
Good, I like Flatline. We need more Flatline.
I mean, I like the Flatline and Damien stuff and Robin, which was also Williamson, so I have reasonable hopes for this. Like, it was almost like the book was threatening me with going back to the Man-Bat stuff, because that that side of the plot was the stuff that I wasn't enjoying in the book. Yeah. But as soon as they almost did it, it was like, no, it's Flatline stuff now. I'm like, okay, that's fine. I'm enjoying the Damien in high school stuff. I'm enjoying the, like, one of the teachers might be a baddie. I like Flatline, so I'm having fun overall. And the Zaz stuff was delightfully dark. Like, I had a good time with that. It was a nice payoff to everything last week. I wouldn't call it like a must-read comic by any means, but I certainly had way more fun with it than anything in the previous two books I read. So, art is solid. It's definitely got a bit of a like an anime style at times with some of the smiles and the faces and whatnot, but it kind of works for the energy of the book. I will say Batman being the proud dad with a big smile on his face, it does feel a little bit like out of character almost. Like, I get that he's happy, I understand the joke, but I feel like giving him like the animated series smirk would probably be better than this goofy like, my boy.
You know what though? Bruce has a tendency to fall for darker women. You know what I mean? Talia, Selena. So of course, like Dick, whether it's Starfire or Babs, right? Those are heroes. We don't talk about Jason's life that much. And then Tim has a good boy right now, right? Like, he's not a villain. So he's like father, like son. Finally, one of my boys is following my footsteps.
That was just a weird way. Tim has a good boy right now. It sounds like a dog.
Yeah, no, because he's not a villain. He's a civilian. You know what I mean? So you know, and even before that, when he had Stephanie really wasn't a villain. You know, no. You know,
I think just the absence of the word friend at the end of boy just made it sound. I'm imagining Tim introducing him as, this is my boy.
Yeah. Well, I was using it in the parlance me and my wife use it from, which is from a podcast. You know, when you know, the good boys, you follow the rules. You don't, you know, you don't talk back as a kid, and it turns you into a specific kind of person. You know. That's what I figured Tim's with right now, because I haven't been reading any of the Tim stuff. But
yeah, I can't believe I'm praising Williamson more than Jason Aaron and Chip Zdarsky, but here we are.
Isn't it weird?
It's just this bizarro land, I guess.
Yeah. You know what though? He's always had a touch for writing Damien, right? So it doesn't surprise me.
Yeah, it's not without its faults, but definitely these last 2 or 3 issues that have, once it got past those first 2 or 3, which were more focused on the shush and Man-Bat stuff. Now it's doing more of the character stuff. I'm enjoying it a bit more. So yeah, it was a nice little 7 out of 10. I had a good time. So
I won that round because that was more than the 6.
5.5 is what I gave Action Comics.
5.5. Okay.
I mean, you're still right, but don't want anyone spreading rumors that I give that a 6. All right. Green Lantern issue 8, legacy number 544. So and this is Jeremy Adams writing with Amancay and Nahuelpan on the art. So this so we had the flashback issue last time, so we're back to the main present day stuff with this character Razor talking to Hal and basically saying, hey, we have to try and, you know, the blue power battery's gone. We know that at least the yellow one and what was the other one that's went? They mentioned another one, but
it's the green. Oh, they also mentioned on Yzmalt, which is the Red Lantern.
that's the red one.
So,
okay.
Yep.
So it's like, hey, this is weird. This is all happening. There's a quick little flashback to him telling that story. And he's like, hey, we need to get to the United Planets and warn them. Well, first he says the Guardians, and Hal's like, the Guardians are gone and no one knows where they are. Well, he's like, okay, well, the United Planets then. You've got a ring, let's go. And he's like, well, I can't actually fly it out of the atmosphere. It turns off. And he's like, oh, come on. Like, your willpower. If it's turning off, it's because you want it to turn off. So Hal's like, okay, fine, I'll give it another try. So Hal tries it like a couple of times, and both times almost dies because it turns off.
It's so funny because the way that it starts with his shoes every time.
Yeah.
Right? When he hits the upper limits, and then the first thing to turn back into civilian clothes is his shoes. And it was just so funny to me. Like, it's a very serious moment that I should not be laughing at, but they handle it well.
Yeah, because he tries it, and then you get a panel of him like choking in his civvies, and then he's falling through the sky, and then he's back into Green Lantern outfit. He's just like a little bit of his arm still turning into the outfit. And then he flies back up again. So that nice big full page spread almost of him, like, you know, going through the space. But then it does go out again, and he falls back down. It's basically just a couple of pages of comedy, and then he comes back and goes, nope, not working. We can't just use my ring.
Yeah. So
he's like, okay, fine. You've got a bunch of superpowered friends on Earth. Why don't we go to some of them and maybe they can get a message out or something? Like, like okay, sounds like a plan. Carol speeds round the corner and is pissed at Hal because he never got in touch after the big fight with Sinestro that lasted 2 issues. And she was worried about him, right? And it's kind of a sweet little moment.
Like, even not on an ex, as a friend, as someone that he works for her too, I definitely understand where she's coming from. Is like, you never let me know you're okay. That is not a human thing to do. Like,
oh yeah, I think
I liked it.
Yeah, but I think the implication here goes beyond that though, because the way she says we were worried, Tal, I was worried. I think there's like it's almost like the personal life is breaking through. Like like if she was just worried as an employer, she wouldn't have driven out here like this. This was
but I definitely like though that she could shield it as that too.
Oh yeah,
because
but it doesn't matter though. The entire motivation to come out here was because there's personal feelings at play here. And of course, Razor Ramon here just sort of goes, hey, yo, this must be this Carol Ferris that we always hear about, because Hal never shuts up about her.
Does she still have her sapphire ring? Because they never mention Zamaron.
I do not know. Maybe that'll come into play. I have no idea.
Maybe.
I do appreciate in the art here that this entire like conversation takes place with stars behind them because it's nighttime. Nice visual. So because Razor says we have to go, Carol says you're leaving, and clearly he's concerned about it. And he's like, well, and he's not actually agreed to go technically yet because they've just admitted that they can't leave. But he's like, well, is there a reason I shouldn't go? And he basically says, look, if you tell me to stay, and she doesn't answer, she says, oh, I've got to go. Like she nopes out of the question as soon as she can. She gets out of the scene and she leaves. And I'm like, don't get me wrong, Hal knows she's engaged. It's a bit of a dick move to put that burden on her. But
it's very Hal Jordan to do, though.
Yeah, it's very Hal Jordan to do, but it's also you can't deny, and the writing and the art gets it across to us, but you can't deny that in the moment, like, it feels right for him to say it. Like, it feels like he thinks that she may actually care if he, like, the mere fact that she's acting like annoyed or concerned that he's leaving again suggests that she doesn't want him to. So therefore, he wants her to admit that, and she's like, oh, I can't admit that, and leaves. No. So I think they're playing with the emotions bubbling under the character's surface level here quite well. I also appreciate that, like, Razor's like, hey, why don't you tell her how you feel? And he's like, trust me, she knows. Like, this is the ball's in her court.
She knows. Yeah.
I really appreciate, and not that this is really different from how Hal usually is, but usually when Hal's been abrasive and the fact that he's like, hey, I like you, and he's always trying to charm her and she's trying to like shoo him away. I think there's an interesting spin on it here where he's never said that he's gotten over her. He's never said that he doesn't want to be with her or anything like that. She's just kind of supposedly have moved on to someone else, but now is like kind of struggling clearly with the feelings that are still there, and you know it's very much her character story to either make a decision of where to go with that.
It's very much a rom-com vibe too, you know.
Sure, yeah, there's a bit of that.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it's not like super serious. Like you can kind of just enjoy it for what it is. So yeah, Hal takes Razor to Madame Xanadu to try and get some help, and
they bring up that the magic, because Razor brings up something about magic, right, with the rings.
Yeah.
And there's some underlying, because of the way that Hal's ring is working isn't consistent with Green Lantern rings, you know.
Yeah. She also says that I can see the green guard's a secret or something, and Hal's like, oh yeah, there was a place in Spain that I could feel something when I was fighting Sinestro, some sort of, like the power was surging, so there's something there. And they realize this right before Rocksteady and a couple of other Green Lanterns from the United Planets show up.
Yeah, in their tunics.
Yes.
You know, definitely a downgrade in Green Lantern uniform.
Yeah, but they're all wearing identical uniforms. You can tell this has been sort of mandated. But the big thing here is that they're here to arrest Razor, and when Hal sort of shows that he's got a ring, and they realize, like, oh, you're an unlicensed lantern as well, so we'll take you both in, and the fight breaks out, is that these lanterns can just change to a different spectrum. Like, one changes to yellow just by choice, and then the other one changes to blue, and it's like, wait, that's weird. It's also notable that, hey, all these power batteries that have been destroyed, it seems like these are the ones that they have access to.
Yep. Which means with Red's going to be up in there too. And the thing I know about Razor from doing a little bit of research, he came from the animated series.
Yes.
And that he was the one lantern that could do red, green, and blue. So, you know, there's in there. And we saw blue now. We saw yellow. We know the Yzmalt one is down.
Yeah. So, I mean, Hal says that's impossible. Obviously, something's cooking here. We're building to something, so that's kind of fun. And Razor's like, you want a war? We'll give you a war. That was another Razor Ramon reference for anyone who didn't get it.
Gotcha.
So yeah, the lanterns blast off with Razor. They've got him arrested, and they're going to go take him back to the United Planets. And so Hal goes off in search of this mysterious place where the green energy's surging in Spain. And that's just where the main story ends, with him going into this sort of cave. It says, next, the secret of the green, although not the Swamp Thing green.
No.
Obviously. Well, maybe it is, I don't know. But for all we know, this is coming from that green. Who knows?
Yeah.
It's not coming from the power battery.
What I do like, though, is it feels as this story made me realize the ring that the Hal's using right now very much feels like Alan Scott's ring and the Star Heart. You know what I mean? The fact that there's magic, kind of, because up until the science fiction-y aspect of Green Lantern, it was always magic that Alan Scott's worked. So I'm wondering if we're going to be getting the Starheart stuff here. Like, maybe that's what's calling out to him, and it's trying to strive for balance. But yeah, it's...
could Alan Scott's ring not work outside of Earth?
I don't remember. I just know it had a weakness to wood. Right? So it's not quite the same. And we know that Hal forged this one, so it wouldn't quite be the same, but I don't know. I'm feeling like this piece that's calling to him feels very much like the Starheart.
It could be that would make sense. I think, honestly, after those other books, after Batman in Action this week, it was so nice to read this because I felt engaged in the relationships of the characters, particularly Hal and Carol. Razor's an interesting new addition. I'm intrigued by what's going on with the United Planets. They're still sort of teasing that out with this new development that their lantern troops are switching spectrums at will. Obviously, Hal being drawn to this cave. Like, it feels like this is like a plot that's ongoing that I'm enjoying, and I want to know where it's going. And each chapter's been very entertaining. Plus, the art's pretty solid. It's maybe not quite as good as the original artist, but
Zermanico, and Zermanico will be back. But
you hope he's still doing a solid job, though, for sure.
It's still pretty. It just for me, the main problem is it's kind of like who's the artist that we always bag on for having tall heads.
Oh God. I can't remember.
Yeah. But there's some of that in here, like with Madame Xanadu, and the proportions are a little bit off with some stuff, but it never really detracts too much. And just the creativity here with like Hal turning his construct into a fire hydrant at one point. You can just tell that Nahuelpan's having a lot of fun with the art. So
Sure.
but yeah, it's just not Germanico, which is a hard thing to criticize.
It's a hard bar. Yeah, it's a hard bar to live up to. But I mean, it's I think he's doing his best job at kind of like having similar art, like as much as he can. So, really solid chapter in this ongoing story. I'm really digging it a lot. Really impressed. Jeremy Adams. I enjoyed his Flash run, but honestly, his Green Lantern stuff so far feels like he's leveled up to a different tier, which is really nice. It's always nice to see a writer do that. And then speaking of, we have a backup by Ron Mars and Dale Eaglesham on the art. This
Holy
is
90s Batman.
Oh, for sure. This is a Kyle story. And not only is it a Kyle story, at the end it promises Jessica Cruz next time. So
let's go.
Everything's coming up. Peter on Green Lantern. It's basically just Kyle talking about how all things have went wrong, and it turns out he's talking to a construct of Alex just so he can get his feelings out there.
She was the girl that was fridged, correct?
I believe so, yes.
So she's the original.
I haven't read that run, so I don't know for sure, but I would suspect that she was the fridged.
Okay.
Yeah, or the fridgy.
Yes. Which makes this like this is the most I like Kyle in a minute. Like I know I like to bag on you, but I don't actually hate Kyle, right? It's just this pushback on the show. However, a lot of his stories as of late, there's when he does pop up, I haven't enjoyed them as much. So it helps that Ron Mars comes in and kind of restores a bit of the humanity to Kyle,
I think what was impressive to me, or not impressive, that's not a real word, surprising to me, I guess, is that I wasn't expecting a story that was set in current continuity.
Yeah.
But, once you realize he's talking in present day, about the past, and he talks about, something's weird with the United Planets, and the end of the story is that Joe Mullen shows up and finds him and says, hey, we've been looking for you, Kyle, you've been kind of AWOL, and says, hey, we have to, go and, something you need to see, let's go. So, yeah, like, we don't get to hear what she wants to tell him. She's going to explain it on the way, but they fly off into space, and it just says, next time, some United Planet stuff, and Jessica Cruz is back. So the fact that this is actually tying into the overall stuff is quite cool, because it means that this backup feels like the third Green Lantern book right now, which is kind of nice. And I like that it's focusing on Kyle and Joe and Jessica for now. Obviously, I know it's going to turn into Guy and Kilowog down the line, but
it's a nice little showcase, for all these other Lanterns. But yeah, this story with him talking in the Green City, it looks like New York. He's reminiscing about moving to New York, just as he had become Green Lantern. He was the last Green Lantern.
It wouldn't surprise me if there was literally a story in the early part of the original run where he's fighting this robot monster thing.
Yeah. So just all of that stuff, and again, it added the humanity back to Kyle that I feel we haven't been able to focus on because there's been so many other Green Lantern stuff going on. So it was nice to have him have a spotlight.
For the last decade, they've kept him in space, so all of those tethers to his actual ongoing story just kind of were left behind. Because Kyle was someone that I knew mainly from Morrison's JLA run that I don't know if I read all of it, but I read a good chunk of that. That was where I initially kind of got to know Kyle. His original run is always something that I do want to get around to.
Yeah, it breaks up into being the last Green Lantern, and then when he becomes Ion, when they decided to bring Hal back around, so those are the two eras of Kyle. And this is leaning on the first part, which I like, because we don't talk about that as much
the
anymore.
Ion stuff is much later. I'm talking about the 90s stuff where he was the main Green Lantern for years.
He was the Green Lantern
in that era. So cool. No, it was nice to see this. It felt like an old school thing. Eaglesham's a solid artist. The crab mask is glorious.
Still not a fan.
Makes all these other Green Lantern outfits look incomplete.
Disagree. I do love his color scheme though, the black with the white. Like I always love that. Like when they gave him the Ion costume, I was like, this is a downgrade. But his design, I always enjoyed his suit.
Yeah, I like that it's more of there's less green. It's not as over the top with the green, whereas the rest of them are all like just bathed in green. Whereas he's got more, more highlights of green as opposed to
true.
So
well, I like when they have different. So like Guy, you love or hate the vest. It's unique to Guy. Just like this Kyle's design is unique to him. No one else has this. So
yeah.
But yeah.
All right, what are you giving Green Lantern?
I'm gonna give this an 8.
Yeah, I think I'm happy to give it an 8. I think if we still had Zermanico, it would probably bump up a little bit. But I enjoyed the main story. I enjoyed the backup, which is normally when I get to a backup, I'm like, it's got a backup. But often it'll be a lesser thing, but it was actually a really nice, like, this is actually tying into like the overall mythos of Green Lantern right now, which is all this United Planets drama. Yep. And it's the original Kyle Rayner writer going to town on him. So I like it. Yeah, 8 out of 10 for me as well. All right. Next up, Blue Beetle issue 6, Josh Trujillo on the art. Writing. And then on art is Adrián Gutiérrez. So take it away, Matt.
Yeah, so this is the final chapter of the first arc, which boils down to Jaime versus the Blood Scarab. And the first page, or the first couple pages, is an origin for the Blood Scarab. And it turns out that he was an archaeology student named Javier Balsuado, and him and his friends had spent years looking for the lost pyramid where this Blood Scarab was, where Kaya Frey, who the pharaoh that became the Blood Scarab was. They get into this lost pyramid, and the Blood Scarab ends up taking over him, and it feeds off of his life force. So essentially, whereas Kaji Da, which is Jaime's Blue Beetle Scarab, whereas it works with him, it seems like the Blood Scarab is almost like a prototype where it burns through people. So it seems like there's definitely a time limit on who can be the Blood Scarab. And so because Kaji Da was the one that had imprisoned the Blood Scarab and for all these years, it wants to take revenge. So a lot of this issue is all of Jaime's friends that are there to support him, giving him enough time to charge his scarab back up to finally, be at full power to take out the Blood Scarab. And the issue jumps around from, Natita and Dynasties and Starfire. They all get their moment with, the Blood Scarab eventually getting the upper hand. And the art is, really helpful in this, in that Gutiérrez, with the layouts, you never get lost in the chaos because it's all taking place in the soccer stadium. And Jaime's in a lot of the same spot. So you kind of get the different vantage points throughout to be able to follow. But of course, my highlight's going to be about Starfire because she realizes that she's probably the most powerful and has the best odds, and that she just needs to keep him occupied. And so she gets a lot of good moments in this to hold him, and eventually knocks Blood Scarab down enough for Jaime to engage Legato mode, which is like his super ultra. And when he does this, Kaji Da completely takes over. And Jaime is like, no, we can't. Like, there's a person in there. And Kaji Da is telling him that, well, no, this is beyond our capacity to handle. He needs to be taken out again. I've done this before. And this is what the Blood Scarab wants. So that operation knows, like, knows that it's going to push, that it's going to have to jump to somebody else. And so Javier, the kid that's inside the Blood Scarab, ends up getting control while Jaime is losing control. So this very nice balance, excuse me. And Javier ends up stopping the Blood Scarab just long enough for Kajida to get, full control. And he's basically calling to, like, just kill me. And Kajida does. Jaime's trying to stop it, and the fight ends on it's just the Blood Scarab and Blue Beetle on a white background with Jaime putting his hand, he's not in control, basically up through the Blood Scarab, with Kajida saying, the objective's complete. Jaime is like apoplectic, and is very upset. Starfire comes down and is trying to console Jaime, who's on the ground in the fetal position, basically like, I didn't want to do this. I tried to stop it. And as Jaime's on the ground, he starts overloading. And Kajida notices or mentions that there's a tachyon interference. And then he disappears in a flash of light. Basically, if it's tachyon, it's probably timey-wimey stuff. And it ends with the group of friends wondering where he went, teasing the hunt for Ted Cord is next. So I believe they're going to be jumping through time. I'm sure Booster will be showing up. We're going to get a Booster and Blue Beetle if I'm happy. But it was a very, very great ending to a book that has, not that it's had up and down, it's been pretty consistent, but kind of just middle across the board. It really, the divide between the Scarab and Jaime is something that I really like, because they've been in such a lockstep for the last couple of years. So for the Scarab to completely override him and lose control, for him to lose control of his own body, it was almost something out of a horror movie. He could not stop what was needed to be done. And in the issue before this, Victoria Cord was saying how this is what they need to do. And Jaime was all pro it, for taking out the Blood Scarab. But when he's actually in the shoes, he doesn't actually want to kill this guy. Because when the Blood Scarab takes the mask off, he sees it's a person just like him. So Jaime's compassion comes through, and he knows he can rely on this, these supporting characters that have come through for him. So really good issue, really good art throughout. I mean, it's essentially a long action sequence. And again, Gutiérrez handles all of the, it's in this one location, but you're able to follow it through all these different characters and go through the chaos. So, excited to see where this goes. We're going to get some timey-wimey, hopefully. And I'll give it an 8.5.
All right, cool. Outsiders, issue 4, Colin Kelly and Jackson Lanzing, with Robert Carey on the art. So this is a super interesting issue. I think this book has been very good about doing very distinct single issues, where obviously you've got the running threads of the characters that were involved, but I mean, we go through half this issue before we even see them or hear from them. It tells the story of this woman who was born at the stroke of the millennium, right? So New Year's Day 2000. Which is actually kind of hurting me now that someone born in that day is now 24.
Yep.
I'm like, crap. They're an adult. Like, that's wild.
They're finishing college.
Let that
sink in.
It's just I don't like it.
It sucks, man. I don't like it. So
yes, it's upsetting. Anyway, so basically tells a story of this specific meta power that this woman has. This is it Jenny? Was her name?
Jenny. Yep.
Yeah. Who realizes as she's growing up that she has this meta ability. And it's basically she gets very anxious, she gets very nervous, her emotions get heightened, and it really affects her. But as she's growing up, she notices that when she does get really happy, something good happens in the world. The big example a few pages in is that when she goes to her first house party and she thinks she falls for someone, the next day the stock market is at an all-time high. Things are going well, things are great, but then a week later she sees the boy kissing someone else, and the day after that the entire market crashes. So the idea is that these world events, there's earthquakes and riots when she's feeling bad, but when she's feeling good things are happening, but it puts a lot of pressure on her, and it means that she has to be very, very scared of feeling anything because it could lead to a lot of bad things. So she kind of develops this life of being in solitude, of not interacting with anyone, and just kind of trying to just, meditate and be away from people.
She becomes this wanderer that needs to keep a constant baseline because she can't get too excited or too sad or anxious, and it leads to this very lonely life.
Yeah. And then she ends up present day going to London and ends up falling for a girl at a party or at a concert or whatever. And they have a great time together. And again, the world benefits from this. Nothing wrong is going on. It's the best couple of days the world's ever had because she's completely in love. But then she gets to basically, dumped or, texted, hey, this was a one night stand. It was fun, but yeah, that's us now. And she breaks down, and of course, lots of bad things start happening. And it's represented in the art with these red, rage lines coming from her head. So it's very visual.
Yeah, it also it reminds me of the Omega Sanction with the way that the Omega Sanction from Darkseid is very red, but there's also these hot whites that go through it as well. Like, you just get the feeling that it's a lot of energy packed into those. So very, very effective.
So finally, it comes to our characters. We get, Luke, Kate, and Drummer. And Drummer's filling them in that this girl exists and that she's been in these different locations. I don't think the implication is that all of the text before was Drummer given this speech, because there's stuff there she couldn't possibly know.
No, it was coming from the Authority book, right, or the Planetary book, because a lot of those narration boxes look like they're from pages.
And they also keep going after this when it feels like the speech has ended. So it's not just what she's saying to them, but they're on the way to London, and Drummer's like, yeah, we have to take this girl down. She's too much of a threat. But what actually ends up happening after she runs away from the two back characters is that she runs into Drummer, and there's a good sequence here. There's a whole chase through the subway in London.
And she loses Kate, where Kate is like, she can't lose me. I'm a bat. Like, this is a thing. And
it's a very pretty sequence. I think the art does a really good job of capturing kind of this tranquility of the tunnels and the eeriness of it. But she runs into Drummer outside, and Drummer just actually tries talking to her and saying, hey, I know what your powers are. You're a century baby, right? And there's multiple century babies, and you specifically affect the world. And basically talks about how this is terrible and how it's, you have to control everything. It says you get dealt a bad hand, but whatever. But, says something like, oh, you were always my favorite. And she's like, huh? Excuse me? What do you mean I was always your favorite? You know me? And it's like, no, but I knew your predecessor. I knew other century babies. So basically tells her about all this stuff, talks about the last one, Jenny Sparks. She was unstoppable. Before her, there was Jenny Discovery. Before her, there was Jenny Crusade. There was a Jenny Quantum. So it's interesting because she's basically giving her advice and saying she has to let her control it. You're not supposed to just live through it. You're supposed to control it and use it for good. And her powers kick in once again. And she does a whole big full page spread moment where she's like, my name is Jenny Crisis. You can F off. So basically, you get to a point here halfway through this conversation where I was like, okay, this feels like we're recruiting her for the team as opposed to anything else. And she actually says, I'm not joining your silly little team. But Luke Fox is like, hey, because by this point, him and Kate have shown up. And he's like, hey, okay, but how about we exchange some contact details just in case, we can help each other in the future. So it definitely feels that we're setting up a character who's going to pop back up again. And Drummer even says the line, she's not a threat, she's an outsider, which it's very interesting. It's a really interesting character dynamic. You did a little bit of research. Are all these previous versions that are mentioned in the other books?
Something that I believe was Warren Ellis in the first Authority series introduced the concept of century babies, where every century there'd be one baby born that kind of takes on the personality of what that century would be. So that's where they talk about Jenny Discovery, right? So in the Authority, it was Jenny Sparks, who was meant to represent the 20th century. And Jenny Sparks gave way to Jenny Quantum, who's the new century baby that's born around seemingly at the same time or around the same time as Jenny Crisis. And or maybe because of the quantum name, I couldn't get a full, just, in my cursory thing, when that happened, but I do know the two that are mentioned there. Sparks and Quantum were both part of the Authority teams at different times. But these Century babies end up having a lot to do with the course of history and how they, not how they change things, but, like Jenny Sparks from my research had a hand in a lot of big events that happened. So they essentially get to this age around 24, 25 and then stop aging, right? So they always look like a younger person.
Okay. So that's how they last all century then.
Yep, right. So, and Jenny Sparks was this, kind of firebrand type character that had a lot to do with these big world events of the 20th century. And so here, what I like that Kelly and Lanzing did is they introduced this 21st century, right, century baby and this millennium baby to almost like being born at the start of the millennium is almost like supercharging her, right? And because this first 24 years of this century have been so tumultuous, right? Like she is born on Y2K as that stuff is happening. It's really tied to her mental state in just the name Jenny Crisis. It's been one crisis after another,
Which
that we've had to live through.
It's also very DC as well.
Well, that's true too. And the red energy, like don't get lost in that.
I also think there's something to be said here about the current century baby having to live this solitude life because they might like cause too much damage. How that kind of relates to the pandemic a little bit. Like, it's a little COVID-y in a sense.
Well, there's that, and there's this whole sense of anxiety that our generation, right? Like we're a little bit older than what this girl's supposed to be, but she's very, very much representative. And I believe Kelly and Lanzing are both around our age, right? Is that we've had to go through one thing after another, and we just have to keep a stiff upper lip. And that's what she's had to do, right? It's one thing after another, and the only way to get through it is to kind of remove yourself from it and not be a part of it. And I like that Drummer tells her, well, you don't have to do that, you just got to learn how to control it, and that's not just because an outsider, that's someone from the outside trying to comment on it, like, well, yeah, you can't just step outside, you can't just control it, there's more to this. And so, yeah, there's just a lot of good social commentary through this issue. And just from what I know, too, from the coworker that we talked this week about Planetary, the Century babies have a lot to do in Planetary as well. So this almost being a tie to, Wildstorm in and of itself, and using that to comment on not only superheroes but social commentary of the now, it is very much what that book was about. So having Drummer in here as that tie to kind of bring it from the late 90s to now is super smart.
Yeah, but also it's worth mentioning that this was a very easy to read,
yes,
full story from beginning to end. It never felt like it penalized anyone for not having knowledge of multiple previous comic book runs.
And in fact, going through the wiki articles and all these different articles on that I had Googled, they do almost a better job of summing up the Century Baby concept in this issue than these other articles in encyclopedia entries do. So kudos to them. And just the art throughout this issue as well. It is a lady running through, essentially running from her problems, right? But there's a sense of tension throughout it, right? Like when she is running from Batwing and Batwoman, there is a sense of urgency there that they need to get to her.
Yeah, the art's very good. Like all the stuff with her sitting in the rain with Drummer. The big full page spread of her looks very good, very detailed, a lot of emotion and expression on her face. I think even something as simple as the top half of the page where Batwing and Batwoman are walking towards her, she's petting the cat. Yeah. And it's got the right amount of street light and the colouring and the moodiness of it to give it a real sense of atmosphere. And it's kind of emphasized when you go into the close-up panel look, and he's got the sort of the harsh bright light of the street light behind him, which is, it kind of emphasizes like the location in the scene based on the previous panel. So everything's got a good sense of that. And I think overall, I think this was just a really solid story that introduced me to a concept that I wasn't familiar with. And I think like I say, it works very well for someone who has no knowledge of planetary or authority. I think it's working completely on its own as a weird tales of like different, just oddball things that are going on that feel, slightly connected. In that Drummer's got this book that's kind of like telling her about a lot of these things.
Yeah.
But it's obviously those little teases and like references and hints to things for people who do know those books, but is very much working and introducing all of its concepts at a very nice pace for someone new. And if it does become more connected to those prior runs sometime down the line, by that point I'll be too invested for it to take me out of it. It'll be sort of like, okay, now I'm too intrigued by everything they've set up in this book so far. So, but four issues in, I think this is one of the more interesting and honestly kind of nice surprises that DC have had in a while. I wasn't expecting to be enjoying it as much as I am, especially since Lanzing and Kelly, like, they tend to be these fill-in writers that I don't really think much of. I remember them doing some fill-ins in Green Arrow that I thought were just mediocre. So it's nice to see them flourishing like this.
You can tell they really care about that era of comics to transpose that stuff and put it into here and to summarize it in a way to get other people to enjoy it almost as much as they do. Because like now I'm invested in Jenny Crisis, right? Like just her whole vibe is something I relate to, of being someone with anxiety myself and having to learn how to control that. And you like, yes, you're supposed to feel your feelings, but you can't run from them. But you also have to know you can't fully control them, and you have to feel them and be in the moment.
Yeah, it's doing that storytelling thing that you can do with fiction, is you take the literal and you multiply it because it's a fictional story. So you take what regular anxiety is and you literally have it affect everything in the world to make it feel like you can't feel it. Because when you feel like you're having anxiety, it feels like it's the end of the world. It feels like you have no control, and it feels like everything's falling apart. So it's just making that more literal by having her feelings actually affect the world at large. So it's an interesting concept for that reason.
Right. So, and so, again, kudos to them. And it makes me want to go back and check out Planetary. Like I said at the beginning of our show, like way back, I want to go and check this out now because I need to, like, if the Planetary book itself was doing these kind of themes with superheroes and myths and legends that this book is done kind of through 4 issues, that's right up my alley because I am really enjoying this especially for something that we thought was going to be like Batman and the Outsiders adjacent, right? Like we didn't realize Drummer was going to be a third character in this when it was announced. For it to turn into this thing that can kind of comment on society and comics as a whole, I'm very excited to see where it goes.
Yeah. All right. What are you giving Outsiders issue 4?
I'm giving this 8.5.
You know what? I'm tempted to agree with that actually.
Ooh.
Yeah. I think it was good. Really good. So all right, Wesley Dodds, The Sandman, issue 5. Robert Venditti writing with Riley Rossmo on art. This was you that read this still, so go for it.
So this is the penultimate issue, and it moves the pieces into where we're gonna leave Wesley Dodds at the end of this. And in the last issue, he had the evil version of Sandman. He had got into a fight in this penthouse where his dad's friend Vanderlyle, his mentor, was, and he knocked him out of the window. And this guy ended up breaking his fall on a car, and he's dead. So it picks up with the police covering up this body, basically saying there's nothing to see here, and them talking, the police talking to Dodds about what was happening, and he tells them that it's a private matter, and he has his girlfriend is the district attorney's daughter, and that talk to her, she was here too, and it leads him going to Fort Hamilton, which is on Brooklyn, to go talk to the commander in charge that is the one that's responsible for his tech getting into the wrong hands. So he ends up sneaking on and he's hitting people with the gas, but because he's been the victim of the gas before, he's a little bit more judicious now because he knows what it's like and he doesn't want to put people through it, unless they have it coming. So he ends up sneaking in and gassing all of these soldiers, except he's not hitting them with the full dose like it's been, because again, he knows what it feels like. But he also needs to do this because he starts seeing visions of what the gases that don't knock people out, the bad stuff that was in his journal, what they would do to people in war. So there he comes across this one guy who kind of looks like Jerry from Parks and Rec. He's this kind of older, overweight guy. And he sees the Sandman and he freezes. And Wesley has the gas gun pointed at him. And the guy has his eyes closed tight. And this is probably the best Rossmo art I've seen in a while, because just the way that it flows. But Wesley hesitates, and the guy opens his one eye, and Wesley puts his gun down, and he runs and hits the alarm, which sends all of these other soldiers in who start putting on gas masks, right? Because they're aware of what he does. This goes into a action sequence where Wesley's breaking through, and great. It feels so weird to praise Rossmo's art here, but I feel like this pulpy kind of stuff is what he's meant to draw, because it looks like a load of chaos with these panels at odd angles, but you can follow the action on the page really well. That Wesley starts going through and taking their masks off and hitting them with all the gas. So the guy that he's there after, Colonel Breckenridge, is trying to make an escape, but he has his gun drawn. He only has one arm, so he's at a disadvantage, of course. And Wesley comes in and basically tells him, "I know what you were doing." He gets him out of that room, and takes him to like an abandoned building. And there's a lot of Batman imagery in this. There's these bats all over this warehouse, just kind of hanging out, which I find is weird because we're decades away from Batman, or kind of even the Waynes. But the Colonel tells him that you don't want to know why I did all of this. And essentially it says that like the next war that's coming, the war that's being fought right now in Europe, we're going to need to be able to do these things. And that, and it gets really dark here, that there's no such thing as a war crime for a winner, right? Because who decides what a war crime is? It's politicians and diplomat. Victory is unimpeachable. War crimes are for the defeated. And West is like, well, I got to find this journal. This cannot end up in the bad hands, in the wrong hands, because this man's a maniac. And he talks about how he was able to get the guy that, whose body they found, Igor Klug. He was a soldier, but he got thrown out of the military for thievery. And so he knew that he was going to be the perfect patsy. And so it just shows that this colonel feels that these lives are all expendable, which for a pacifist like Wesley is what drives his belief system. And so he's just letting the colonel talk, and he goes behind him, and he's like, look, you can call the police, but I'm a decorated soldier. Nothing's gonna, get me in trouble. And he goes, they're not gonna believe a word that you say. And he goes, well, they're not gonna listen to me, Colonel. They're gonna listen to you. And you see that Wesley had planted a primitive recording device that's recording things to a vinyl of the last, 5 minutes of the colonel talking, basically describing his crimes. He essentially got monologued, in the classic fashion. And he leaves that for the police to find. And then Wesley realizes who has the journal, because the colonel has told him that he left it with Vanderlyle. And the butler, I think it's Higgins, is there trying to clean up Vanderlyle's house from, the fight that had happened there. And as he's looking under, for all these broken glass or whatever, he looks under a chair and finds Wesley's journal. And he gets hit with a candlestick. Or his name is Humphreys, not Higgins. And that essentially it's Vanderlyle that's been behind this the entire time. So it leads right into the final chapter. I'm sure, Wesley and him will have at odds, and it'll end with, Sandman being the guy that we know, because it's almost not necessarily his origin, but an early story of of kind of how Wesley Dodds became the Sandman. Rossmo art, really good. Like, I'm surprised because we bag on him so often. But I feel like this and the Shadow Book are two of the best, for him. So, story kind of can pick where it's going, but that's Venditti. He kind of knows how to tell these pulpy stories. So I will give this a 7.5.
Okay. I'll take us on to the final book of the week, which is Batman City of Madness, Book 3. Christian Ward writing and art on this. This is the Bat Cthulhu. Issue 2 ended effectively with the Bat Cthulhu taking the kid who he wants to be his Robin into the Under Gotham, and Batman following in with a Talon to try and get him back, which sets up what this final issue does. Which definitely goes places by the end, which it's funny, in a week where we've got Joker Year 1 playing out in Batman, it's interesting a wild thing that this tacks on to its ending, which shockingly, and maybe it's because it's like an Elseworld, I don't hate it.
I don't either, because of what it represents, what this Gotham underneath ends up representing makes a lot of sense for the way Gotham is the way that it is, right?
So, well, yeah, but the thing we're talking about here is that we find out that this Bat Cthulhu character, the man underneath the Cthulhu, if you will, is this guy named Arthur Arkham, right? And we get some seeds early on, and at the start I didn't realize this was like real Gotham. I thought this was still in the Under Gotham. But Under Gotham was sort of created to house this guy, because he was the son of Amadeus Arkham, and the serial killer who was coming to Arkham killed his mother and sisters to basically get back at Amadeus Arkham. And he grew up just sort of like completely, messed up by this experience, by losing his family. Very Bruce Wayne, right? Very, very much in that kind of vein. And ultimately, the entity that built the Under Gotham kind of latched onto him and fed off of his grief and his pain, and effectively built a Gotham for him to exist down here as the Batman of this Gotham. And it's the idea that Batman, or a version of Batman, is so full of grief because grief drives everything that he is, that this is a Batman that he can just feed off forever. So it's feeding this cosmic style, this Cthulhu-esque entity, which has obviously lent him some tentacles for his costume.
It's very trauma-based, right?
It's all about trauma,
Yeah, so he went through this entire thing, and his dad tried to help him because his dad runs Arkham Asylum, right? He created it, but nothing's working, and he basically starts trying to use says I've tried everything, every method. What else do I do? And it's almost like the trauma was driven more by the hopelessness of his father, and that's what created the Gotham underneath. For him to act out these things.
He didn't have Alfred, right? Is kind of fundamentally what it gets to. He had this other type of character, and even just this opening scene where it's this the opening scene's actually like a caveman thing, but after that, when it's the like Amadeus talking to this serial killer patient who's coming, and there's this little moment where the killer's looking at a photo of his family and licking his lips, and it's like really disgusting. You can tell exactly what he's thinking.
Well, and he's surrounded in that page where you're introduced to that serial killer. He's surrounded by that type of that mask that we're introduced to that takes a bat form. The caveman.
It's like the red mist,
yeah. And it's very from what I associate with Lovecraft, right? This cosmic horror, this unknowable thing that roots itself in a person.
Yeah. So the main gist of this is that basically he's been down here for a while. This Gotham was built to mimic Gotham above, and he became the Batman down here to mimic the real Batman up top. And this entity effectively is like a big heart at the heart of this city. Batman comments on how he can sort of feel like a pulse or a heartbeat coming through the streets. It's like it's all connected. There's a whole sequence here as well where he fights a giant alligator or crocodile, I guess, which is meant to be this world's version of Killer Croc. And I kind of dug that as both as a fan of monster movies, but also the fact that there's a giant alligator in Resident Evil 2. It was just fun to see Batman tackle this.
And the fact when it starts talking to you is like, oh, this is just this version, because there's the hints that it's the kid, right? Where it says that this Gotham, it was almost like it was drawn by a kid, right? Like nothing really makes sense. It's not an exact copy. It's close enough.
And
so you're just like, oh, the Croc is just a kid's version of it. And then it starts talking, right? And he gets up and has two stomachs.
Although it's got a mouth in its stomach, you mean to say?
Yeah. That's what I meant to say. It's got two mouths, one in his stomach. Yeah. But then it starts talking to Batman. It's like, where's your sushi face? Because I fancied some sushi. I guess you'll do. And I was like, okay, we're going to get some levity in this.
Yeah, I almost want to just skirt past this. The other big thing is that Batman meets this world's Two-Face, which is the Two-Face that, of course, was communicating with Harvey Dent up top. And that was a really cool sort of like tease for all this stuff. But we find out that all the villains here, like no one else here is real. They were all just created by this entity to be some kind of copy of what's up above. The person inside Cthulhu is the only real person down here. And the reason why he's brought this Robin down, whose father was killed, was because this entity wants some fresh trauma. It wants someone to feed off that's got a fresher, dark past to sort of live off. So there's some great art here where you kind of see this almost like Bat Cthulhu thing behind Bat Cthulhu is like a Batman with Cthulhu tentacles, and we've been calling them Bat Cthulhu through the whole thing.
Yes.
But then they've got this almost, I'm going to call him Barbatos Cthulhu.
Yes.
Right?
Yeah.
Which is the sort of more actual cosmic entity that's more bat shaped but red and all that. So there's like panels where he's kind of behind Bat Cthulhu. It's like a sort of like double layer of like
it's a rushing nesting doll of trauma.
Yes, that's a good way of putting it. Yeah, because you've got Robin, you've got Batflew with his hands on his shoulders behind him, and then you've got the big cosmic Batflew behind him.
Yeah, I wasn't expecting it to get into the actual cosmic horror, because like we've been talking about the Barbatos thing in Detective Comics with Ram V, right? And the way that that's handled is completely different from this, where this feels very much like Lovecraft. This is very much madness personified.
This is very much its own take on it. This is its own thing, and but anyway, like I keep almost trying to say what happens at the end because it's really interesting to talk about. Just to sum up other things here. Obviously, Batman does, like, the kid doesn't choose to kill the copy of the guy that murdered his dad. Instead, he does go with Batman back up to the real world. There's a whole thing here because Talon starts fighting against Batman, but then this world's Harvey Dent ends up helping by jumping in. It's a whole thing, and Batman hugs the kid. He even takes off his cowl and shows that he's Bruce Wayne to try and help him and sort of gain his trust. But Talon's planted a bomb down here, which is going to detonate the whole thing. So Batman and the kid just have to run out and escape at the last possible second. There's a big, great 2-page spread with this explosion in the background as they're leaving in some sort of demented version of the Batwing. It's all very nice. What we're getting to, though, the main thing I want to talk about, and it's so interesting that I kind of like this, despite everything I said about Joker Year One, is that this actually does kind of give us an interesting possible origin for the Joker. Is that at the end, it talks about how, so Arthur Arkham, this kid, right, probably when he was a bit older, was taken in by this Cthulhu and brought down here to become the Cthulhu character.
Right.
It mentions, though, that his physical body didn't come down here. It was kind of like swapped, effectively, with like a copy. They put a copy of him back up into Gotham to sort of exist. And, like, it straight up says, like, it's, I wonder whatever happened to that copy. And as we're hearing that, we start seeing, like, the Joker putting on his makeup and putting his hat on. And it's basically this idea that the Joker in this Elseworld, at the very least, is this empty shell that was created by a Cthulhu-style cosmic horror to basically just be like an empty shell to represent the kid that's been taken down there to feed on the grief, which is very interesting when you think of how the Joker is the opposite of Batman. Is that, right. Yeah, I don't know. There's actually a very interesting thematic way of looking at this choice.
Yes, and it does the whole duality thing of the yin and the yang, right? that Batman's a little bit crazy, right? To dress up as a bat and go fight crime, right? But then Joker's almost the opposite of that, where he's almost pure madness that's just as a human, you know? And it's almost like a yin and the yang is they have a little bit of each other in them, right? And so, yeah.
I think, I mean, you've also got Batman like hugging Alfred during this part. That's the last page. So again, it's reaffirming how important Alfred is to like the development of who Bruce is. But I think it's the reason why I think I like this is because it still comes from this place of mystery, and while it is maybe more of a definitive origin for who the Joker is, and kind of says he's this guy named Arthur Arkham, he's not really. He's actually more of just an entity that was there to replace him. So it kind of still fulfills this idea of him being this just like he's not a person really. He's more of a, like you say, a force of nature. He is just this idea personified. So I would never really want in continuity Joker to be explained like this. As an Elseworld, I think this is a really fun thought exercise as to what the Joker is.
Well, and it just feels that whole idea of when you get to that whole cosmic horror of it all, like Joker is still unknowable, right? It is that mystery of him that makes him so interesting.
Well, I mean, what do we always say about what makes a Lovecraftian cosmic horror is that I think one of the ways I've heard it defined is that, and why like characters go mad when they start like getting messages from Cthulhu and stuff is because we simply just cannot comprehend what these things are. They're beyond comprehension. So the idea that the Joker comes from something that we can't comprehend still does kind of work in a weird way.
It does, and that also is talks about grief and trauma and all of that type of stuff too, because you can try, right? Everyone handles that stuff different. And so despite the fact that there's therapists and psychologists and all that, they can help you get through it. It all comes from a place where it's kind of incomprehensible. You know,
it's probably also, I think in terms of the story and not being mad about it, I think it also comes from the fact that it is just it's a little epilogue. It's a little nice thing tacked on to the end that just gives a bit of like, hey, what if idea to the story that we just told that had nothing to do with Joker. Like this was not a Joker story at all. It's just this idea that the upside down Batman, if you want, to use the Stranger Things term, is that the upside down Batman in some ways is the Joker in a thematic sense.
Well, there's that too, and the tie to that too is like their version of Two-Face was able to communicate with our version of Two-Face because of the idea that Harvey's gone mad. Right?
Yeah.
So it's been crawling up to Gotham in little tiny ways this whole time.
But is that also why there's no upside down version of Joker? Is because literally the guy that's inside the Bat costume is technically their Joker.
Right.
So that's very interesting, yeah.
So
because you see a few of the other villains at Arkham. You see like Ivy looks like she's dead. It looks like there's a scarecrow sitting in a cell. You get a sense that there's a lot of these other villains. Obviously, we see Croc in what demented version of him. And it never occurred to me as I was reading that, are we going to see this world's version of Joker? And we never do. And the reason for it is probably because Joker is what's created when you take this person with trauma away and replace it with the empty shell. I don't know. It's very interesting as a thought piece. Again, I wouldn't necessarily want this to be the in continuity, just like straight up, here's the explanation for where Joker came from. But this is such an out there idea versus just, he's someone who has a dark past or someone who,
Yeah, and it is that opposite again. I keep saying that, but like where Bruce is born from it, very much real, right? From the grief of his parents. Joker's it could literally be anything, right? It's Batman's origin is clearly defined in all of that, whereas Joker's doesn't have to be, right? It can be this mystery, even in this, right, where they're not quite sure that he is the shell of Arthur Arkham, and I just like that.
Yeah. So yeah, it's very interesting. It's a very big swing it takes at the end, but I surprisingly didn't hate it. I kind of liked it even. So at least in an Elseworld, I thought it was a really interesting thing, and didn't just feel like there were I don't know, like, because they could have marketed this. They could have said, "Oh, a hot, new take on Joker's like backstory or whatever," and they never did. And and the thing is that while it's only a couple of pages at the end, because they've given us so much story about Arthur Arkham and who he is and why he was sort of taken down to this place, why this entity built this fake Gotham around him. Even the fake Court of Owls is like, mentioned in the story, kind of like wanted to control more, so they actually escaped into the real Gotham and all the rest of it. Like, there's so much behind all this that all of the information is already there for us to get excited and think about what this means, that this fake copy that was left instead is there. I mean, yeah, don't get me wrong, it does kind of break the rule that I almost wished is never broken, which is we do technically have a name for who Joker is. It's just that in this case, that person isn't really him anymore, because he got swapped. Well,
and just also, I know that Arkham was a name that Arkham Asylum came from Lovecraft.
It did, yeah.
So it's very funny that Arthur Arkham ends up being this, if that is who the Joker is, it's very funny.
Isn't the name Arthur actually associated? Yeah, the new movie, it was Arthur in that, right? That was his name.
Holy crap, he was. Yeah. I forget his full name.
It wasn't Arkham. But it was Arthur
Fleck, because there was Affleck jokes. Yeah. Oh man. Good pull on that one. You remember that, where I try to forget that movie as much as I can.
I didn't until that moment. It just popped out in my head. I was like, wait, isn't Arthur also related to Joker as well? It is for that movie, at least. I don't know if it came from anywhere before that.
Yeah. So, but yeah, just man, Christian Ward executing this on a high level, because I was like, how are they going to wrap these threads up? And then once it started to get into the Talon fight, and I was like, okay, this is kind of typical. But then once we got to the whole idea of trauma and grief and that driving Arthur and then becoming the Batman of that world, because of all of this. But he didn't have an Alfred. He didn't have that guiding force. It was just the trauma in full control, and how does it, how does it keep going is, well, you just traumatize somebody else. So it's also this thing about generational trauma being passed down as well. And it's just like, I wasn't expecting that in a Bat Cthulhu book, right? Like, so yeah, man, Ward's really handling. I look forward to see what he's working on next.
Yeah, this, like, I got super interested in this by the end of the first issue, and I feel like the ending here kind of hit me with something that I can never have seen coming. And I think it's because it was just not predictable, because it didn't introduce the idea of this character until the third issue, so we couldn't have predicted it anyway. But
right.
I think this is such an interesting swing, and it's a big swing, but it's so out of a left field, to use a term, that it doesn't feel like it betrays what the book already set up, but it does sort of like immediately make you think about the larger implications of what it just kind of throws out here at the end. And like I say, as an Elseworld, as a thought exercise of like, hey, what if Joker is just like a body that came from Cthulhu? He is just this empty vessel of chaos kind of thing. And maybe the reason why he's so obsessed with Batman in some capacity is that because he's a copy or a duplicate without the soul of someone who had a similar tragedy or something. I don't know. There's something in there that is quite interesting. As much as I hate when writers try and connect them thematically beyond just like what they mean to each other in the present sense, this at least was a cool reveal, and like I don't need it to ever come back. That said, though, if he says, hey, they've let me do a sequel and I'm going to explore like more of this, then I wouldn't be against it either. I'd be curious to see what he has, but
like the madness comes to Gotham type thing.
But yeah, interesting. You know what, like I think on paper, if you told me this before I read it, I'd have said that sounds shit. Having actually read it, the execution does actually go a long way to make me go, you know what, I'm actually kind of into this. So
something like that definitely made me want to go recheck out the John Carpenter movie Prince of Darkness again, because there's some similar themes about madness and trauma and that happen in that movie as well. So but yeah, no, this is very, very, very well done.
Yeah, and obviously, I don't know if we've emphasized the art enough at this point, but some of it is just absolutely stunning. Yeah. You've got all this. I mean, most of the issue takes place in the Under Gotham, and just the various versions of like the evil spreading, the heartbeat. We see it looks like a giant heart at one point when you see this Cthulhu entity, whatever it is, and then, as I said, that early stuff where it's the real world of the history of Arthur Arcane, or Arkham's not Arcane. Arthur
I was
Arkham.
gonna say, who's Arthur Arcane, man?
Sorry,
It's
the
a new
word
character.
Arcane's like dark magic. It kind of fits.
It does fit. Like, I'm just saying, like, who was this character I missed? But I just gotta say, it was this in the Aquaman book. Ward's coloring, he just has a touch that I haven't seen in very many other artists. Just like all of the pinks and greens and like colors that I don't normally associate with each other. He makes them all work in the Under Gotham.
Yeah, I think. Yeah, the only way I can describe this ending working for me is that it's just not an idea I could have ever predicted to try and do, that it just hit the right note of surprise plus like interest. Whereas almost anything else you could do to try and explain who Joker is will just make me roll my eyes. This was at least like, oh, well, this is definitely an idea. Like you've definitely put some thought into this.
Like you said, it's an epilogue. It's not the main point.
Yeah.
So that goes a long way too. That he's like, hey, what about this? As a time to make you think. But yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Cool. All right. What you rating City of Madness issue 3?
I'm gonna give this a 9.
I agree with that. It's super interesting. It was for a double-sized issue, 50 pages or whatever it is, it was a very quick, easy read as well.
Yeah, for sure.
Super cool. So, there you go. That'll take us out to the part of the show. We pick our favorite stuff of the week, favorite panel/moment, favorite cover, favorite art, and top 5 books, of course. Matt, what was your panel/moment of the week?
All right, so there was one from Action Comics, and it was the tired Superman. I wanted to point that out. I thought that was really good. Also, in Blue Beetle, where the Blue Beetle ends up killing the Blood Scarab, I thought that was a big, like, holy shit moment. However, mine's going to be from Outsiders, and it's going to be when Jenny Crisis names herself that. It's this big splash page. The energy's coming off of her, and it was where, it really clicked into me that she's the next piece in this going forward.
Yeah. I think I got to go with the sort of reveal / suggestion at the end of City of Madness. It was just such a bold take. And it did take me a second where I'm like, wait, do I like that they're doing this? I don't know if I do. And then I was like, I actually do think I kind of like it. Weirdly. I wasn't expecting to. So it's just if nothing else, the way you tell a story, the execution and the way you build to something and how you present that information is such a deal breaker in how some ideas will come across. And this is a perfect example of it because holy crap, there's so many versions of this that I would have absolutely hated and it just works. So I'll go with that. Cover of the week, I will mention the main cover for City of Madness is gorgeous. It's just Cthulhu with the tentacles in all of its glory. But I got to go with someone who has consistently been one of my favorite cover artists recently, and that is Steve Beach on Green Lantern. That main cover is just beautiful. It's Hal, you got Kilowog and Kyle, and just good stuff. There's an argument to be said that he often makes his characters look like angry or like overly emphasizing the emotions, but I don't know, I'm into it. I'm just so into it.
So Hal definitely has a stank face.
Oh yeah,
on this cover, and it cracks me up. So yeah.
Whereas Kyle looks so happy to be wearing the crab mask.
Yes. Well, someone has to be.
I'm delighted that he's wearing the crab mask. It's perfect. What's your cover of the week?
So there are a couple that I want to mention. There is a Sandman cover by Albuquerque that's just completely moody. It's got him up in this like alleyway with a red background with the smoke coming around him. That looks real nice. There's a action cover by Federici that's got Bizarro looking very scary, almost Frankenstein's monster-esque. But mine's going to be from Green Lantern as well. And it is the incentive cover by Al Barrio Nuevo. And it's very silly. It's Hal throwing a pitch to an alien, and it's very Silver Agey, and it made me chuckle. So that's mine.
Okay. Best art of the week.
It's hard to go against Christian Ward. Like, there was some good art through this week. I think the Outsiders. I'm drawing a blank on his name right now. I think it's Rob Carey. That one's close, but I think the City of Madness takes it.
Yeah, Carey might have been the pick had Ward not been there with City of Madness this week. So maybe next month he's got a good chance because City of Madness won't be there anymore. But yeah, Ward takes it for me as well. All right, top 5, Matt, go.
All right, City of Madness 1, Outsiders 2, Blue Beetle 3, Green Lantern 4, and I guess that means Action Comics 5. No, Sandman's 5. What am I thinking?
Okay.
There we go.
Number 1 for me is City of Madness. Number 2 is Outsiders. Number 3 is Green Lantern. Number 4 is Batman and Robin. And then number 5 is, I guess, Action Comics, just by default.
Yep.
Because it definitely ain't Batman. So, yeah, rough week for a few of the books, I would say. And I will now tell you what's coming next week from DC Comics. We have Batman 144.
Hallelujah, it's the last Joker.
I mean, I'm assuming it is anyway, because it's back to just monthly after that. So I'm assuming Joker Year 1 wraps up with the next issue. But here's hoping anyway. We have Nightwing 111. We have Batman Superman World's Finest 24. We got Superman issue 11. We have Titans issue 8. Wonder Woman issue 6. Catwoman 62, Justice League versus Godzilla versus Kong issue 5, Green Lantern War Journal issue 6, and John Constantine Hellblazer Dead in America issue 2. So a little bit busier. I've got a good 7 or 8 books there that I'll be looking at. I'm excited for most of them, so that's cool. So it should be a good week next week. I am, consider me hyped. But
yes,
that is the show, everyone. Thank you very much for joining us here on this episode 395 of Comics from the Multiverse. You can support the show and all of the content that's made at MailFuzz Movies and MailFuzz TV over at patreon.com/MailFuzzTV. You get a little bit early access to the show. But that is so thank you once again for watching or listening. We always appreciate it. Keep reading DC Comics and remember to never get lost in the Speed Force.